Chapter 41, Slowly but Surely. MMMN. Ha. Ha. Ahem. My body feels, so strange, ngh. Plop. Uta's vision blurred for a moment as a shiver ran through her body. She parted her trembling lips, her breath hot and uneven, before swallowing every drop of Lynn's saliva, savoring the intimate exchange as warmth spread through her, amplifying the effects of the magic replenishment. Mahiru, who had just joined Lynn's peerage, widened her eyes, her pupils trembling violently. As a new member, witnessing such an intense scene right away left her little heart flustered, beating rapidly. Uchiha noticed her exaggerated reaction, looked away, and muttered under her breath, "It's just something new to her. It's just magic replenishment." Yes, just replenishing magic. Uchiha quickly composed herself and even began explaining the concept of magic replenishment to the newcomer, passing on some of her own experiences. Wait, why am I even explaining this to her? Uchiha's popular science session abruptly halted. What if Mahiru used magic replenishment as an excuse to get closer to Lynn in the future? Lynn was already busy every day. The least she could do was let him have some proper rest. Mahiru stared at Uchiha in confusion. Why did she stop explaining? She wasn't done listening yet. Lynn, on the other hand, wasn't paying attention to their small drama. Since Mahiru was quickly getting acquainted with everyone, he was more than happy to see it happen. Not far away, Maiko was looking at him eagerly. Raising an eyebrow, Lynn smirked. What's wrong, Maiko? Do you need magic replenishment too? No, no, no. I. Maiko instantly panicked, frantically waving her hands in denial. But Lynn could see she was exhausted. Without hesitation, he walked straight toward her. That won't do. How can you level up properly if you don't restore your stamina and magic power? Maiko's eyes widened in shock as something soft and warm pressed against her lips. A deep blush spread across her face, heat pooling in her chest. Despite the shyness gripping her, her body showed no signs of resistance. If anything, a tingling sensation coursed through her veins, making her head spin. Her trembling hand rested lightly against Lynn's chest as she stared at him, dazed. Is this a kiss? This feels so good. Her vision blurred, her body surrendering to the intoxicating pleasure. Strange, it smells like orange lipstick. Wait, this scent. It's just like Uchiha-senpai's. The kiss didn't last long. Lynn quickly pulled away. But Maiko still felt breathless, her fingers instinctively touching her lips. A strange, unfamiliar feeling swirled in her heart. Her first kiss. It wasn't bad. On the other side, Uchiha rolled her eyes at the scene, feeling utterly helpless. She unconsciously kicked the air with her foot and muttered, I knew Maiko wouldn't escape either. At this rate, wouldn't she fall behind Maiko? The thought sent a chill through Uchiha's spine. No. I need to find a chance to get myself into Lynn's bed. Mahiru, still watching, was a little surprised. She finally understood the significance of their peerage name. She whispered softly, so it really is a harem. Then, she inevitably thought about herself. A faint blush crept up her face. Would she also, eventually? No, no, no. I can't think about this. After letting Maiko experience magic replenishment, Lynn turned his attention to their peerage base in the zombie world. It had already been half a month since he arrived here. The area surrounding their base had been almost entirely developed. In fact, there weren't even enough zombies left in the vicinity for Saiko and the others to grind for experience. Uchiha and Maiko were fine. Since they had school during the week, they only leveled up at night. But Saiko and Shizuka were native to this world. With society already collapsed, they no longer had work or school to attend. That meant, all they did was kill. Or rather, Saiko was the one doing all the killing. Before the apocalypse, she had always been suppressing her true nature. But now, she could finally let loose. And Saiko had no intention of stopping. As a result, Shizuka, who was constantly dragged along, complained endlessly. But the results spoke for themselves. Shizuka's progress aside, Saiko's growth rate was insane. A few days ago, during an update to the system, she had even broken through SS rank and reached SSS rank. However, the higher she climbed, the slower her progress became. Lynn estimated that Saiko had almost reached the limit of a lower-class demon. If things continued at this pace, she wouldn't be able to break through further without spending years grinding. If there was still no progress today, he would upgrade her. Lynn already had a plan in mind. Of course, he hadn't forgotten the reason he brought Mahiru here. Mahiru, it's time to test your ability. Yes. Mahiru straightened her back. She looked nervous, instinctively clasping her hands together. It's finally time. She had no idea what her ability was truly like. Just reading the description didn't give her a clear picture. Saiko. Yes, master. Hearing Lynn's voice, Saiko immediately understood his intentions. The moment she moved, it was like an arrow being loosed from a bow. She shot forward, leaving only cracks in the ground where she once stood. Her attributes had already reached the limits of a lower-class demon. Her physical strength was now far beyond what it once was. In just a few minutes, Psycho had drawn a horde of scattered zombies toward them. So these are zombies. Mahiru clenched her fists, taking deep breaths. Lynn had already explained the situation in the zombie world before bringing her here. But seeing the creatures firsthand, she couldn't help but feel the same unease that Uchiha and the others had when they first arrived. Lynn thought for a moment. Considering Mahiru's ability, he gave an order. "Rei, go grab a pistol." "Ah, right. On it." Rei snapped out of her daze and hurried off. The firearms in Rika Minami's room had been discovered long ago. But no one in Lynn's peerage had really used them. They had only tested them out a little before leaving them to collect dust. But for Mahiru, a gun might actually be useful. Her ability, Fallen Wings, was likely a large-scale area attack. But its magic consumption was probably high. With Mahiru's current magic reserves, she wouldn't be able to keep it active indefinitely. That's why a low-consumption, single-target attack method was necessary. By channeling attribute magic into bullets, she could fire precise, effective attacks. While waiting for Rei to return, they wouldn't sit around idly. "Mahiru, try activating Fallen Wings first." "Okay." Mahiru nodded firmly. Closing her eyes, she focused on the power within her body. HNN. She could feel something emerging from her back. Whoosh. A single black feather drifted across the night sky. Then, a pair of massive black wings, nearly 3 meters wide, unfurled from her shoulder blades. The deep, gloomy color clashed with Mahiru's otherwise holy appearance. Yet it exuded an irresistible, decadent allure. Staring at the black wings behind Mahiru, Uchiha's eyes flashed with surprise. She couldn't help but wonder, could she actually be a fallen angel? Those wings were clearly different from devil wings. "Looks like this newcomer is anything but ordinary," Psycho remarked as she approached, giving her evaluation. "Homewrecker," Uchiha rolled her eyes at her. Her resentment could fill a bucket. Having to listen to her performance every night just to fall asleep, how could she not be resentful? On the other side, Mahiru flapped her wings, reaching out curiously to touch them. They're warm. And when she touched them, she could feel it, just like how she could feel her tail. Thinking about her tail, Mahiru's face flushed. That tail was an improper organ. Lynn walked closer and reached out to touch her wings. Feels like petting a cat. HNN. Mahiru's eyes flickered with nervousness. Lynn's touch gave her a strange sensation, one she hadn't felt when touching them herself. Why does it feel different when Lynn touches me? It's really comfortable. A dangerous thought crossed her mind. She suddenly had the urge to curl up in Lynn's arms and let him pet her. "Mahiru, try attacking those zombies." Lynn's voice snapped her back to reality. "Ah. Oh okay." She panicked for a moment. Lynn sighed. "Your wings, use your wings." At his reminder, Mahiru quickly regained her composure. Whoosh. Her black wings swung forward under her control. A strong gust of wind sent her golden hair into disarray. The black feathers shimmered, flickering with light and dark energy. Swoosh. The sound of something slicing through the air echoed under the night sky. Like black and white arrows. Boom. Boom. The feathers pierced through the zombies, embedding into the filthy ground, creating crater-sized holes. Not bad. For a newly transformed low-class devil, this was a decent level of power. Lynn shifted his gaze from the ground back to the zombies. What intrigued him more was Mahiru's light and dark attributes. The zombies struck by the light attribute feathers slowly dissolved, as if being burned by holy flames, releasing wisps of white smoke. Meanwhile, those pierced by the dark attribute feathers were engulfed by a swirling mass of shadowy energy, as though being devoured by a black hole. Burning and corrosion? Mahiru's attributes seemed to inflict debuffs on enemies. And light is naturally the bane of devils. Lynn turned his head. At some point, Uchiha and the others had backed away, now standing dozens of meters from Mahiru. When Uchiha met Lynn's gaze, she let out an awkward laugh, rubbing her arms uncomfortably. Her gaze toward Mahiru carried a hint of fear. "Master, are you sure Mahiru isn't a real fallen angel?" Her expression was complicated. Had Lynn actually corrupted an angel and led her to fall? Otherwise, how could Mahiru possess light-based abilities? When that light attribute manifested, Uchiha's instincts screamed danger, as though she had just met a natural enemy. Even Psycho and the others weren't spared from that uneasy feeling. Who would believe she was a devil at this point? Lynn didn't bother explaining. "Mahiru, show them your devil wings." Rather than wasting words, it was better to provide direct evidence. Mahiru quickly complied, revealing her devil wings without hesitation. She didn't want her abilities to create a rift between her and the others. To her, since they were all Lynn's peerage, they were family. And she cherished her family. So she didn't want any misunderstandings. Alright, she's definitely a devil. Uchiha muttered, her tone complex. A devil possessing the characteristics of a fallen angel. Even exuding a holy aura akin to an angel. This is hard to judge. Just then. Master Lin, here's the gun. Rei came running over, slightly out of breath, her chest bouncing with each step. Lin took the firearm. A desert eagle. It looked a little out of place in Mahiru's small hands, and the recoil would be pretty intense. But Mahiru was a devil now. She could handle it. Try infusing it with light magic and fire a shot. Mahiru took the gun, her expression serious. She slowly infused it with light energy before pulling the trigger. Bang! Ah! I missed. Mahiru curled her toes awkwardly. Lin sighed. That's my fault. I forgot you've never used a gun before. After thinking for a moment, he moved behind her, placing his hands over hers. Mahiru froze. Her wings instinctively folded back, letting Lin get closer. Lin didn't hesitate, guiding her hand and saying, keep channeling light magic. HMNN. Mahiru's voice came out strangely. Lin's breath. His lips were near her ear. And that was her weak spot. Her body trembled slightly, her voice getting softer, and without realizing it, she leaned into Lin's chest. Uchiha? Since when did shooting practice come with perks like this? Psycho's eyes glinted. It seems I should learn how to shoot, too. Uchiha quickly followed up, well, I can't let you outdo me. I'm the most diligent and eager to learn, after all. Maiko. This was getting ridiculous. Were they actually trying to learn how to shoot? Or was this just an excuse? Bang! 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 While the others entertained their own thoughts, Lin focused on helping Mahiru fire more bullets into the zombies. The result? The effect is mediocre. Lin frowned slightly. But this wasn't Mahiru's fault. Ordinary human weapons can't channel large amounts of magic power. Still, it's usable for now. It looked like he needed to find a suitable weapon for Mahiru. And zombies weren't an ideal test subject for her light attribute attacks. To properly test its effectiveness against devils, they needed to find a stray devil. Lin released Mahiru's hand. Mahiru immediately felt a strange sense of loss. It wasn't until a few moments later that she realized. She was still leaning against Lin's chest. Sorry. Flustered, she quickly straightened up, her face turning a deep red. Lin chuckled. It's fine. If you want to lean, you can keep leaning. His lips curled into a teasing smirk. Mahiru's brain short-circuited. Sizzle. It felt like her head was overheating. After testing Mahiru's abilities, she asked Psycho to help her gain some combat experience. Once they finished, Mahiru had no intention of returning home. With no one waiting for her, there was nothing worth going back to. She looked at Lin seriously and declared, since I've become part of Mr. Lin's family, I must take responsibility for taking care of him. So, leave the housework and cooking to me. Rolling up her sleeves, Mahiru was filled with determination. Such overwhelming feminine energy. Uchiha and Maiko exchanged subtle glances. Maiko started reflecting on herself. Have I really not been taking care of my master properly? I should ask my mother to teach me how to cook when I go back. As for Uchiha, she had taken care of Lin before when they lived together. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was that she was never allowed in the kitchen. Lin had completely banned her from cooking. Recalling those unpleasant memories, Uchiha suddenly felt depressed and discouraged. Psycho, time for your upgrade. Yes, master. Psycho removed her clothes, lay on the bed, and awaited her level up. Lin pricked his finger and let a drop of blood fall onto her blessings, revealing her stats. Busujima Psycho. Rank, low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Strength, SSS 1378. Agility, SS 1096. Durability, SS 1035. Magic, SS 1028. Inherent skills. Yearning for killing, omitted. Blade Devil, omitted. Her stat growth had almost reached its limit. Rank, mid-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Yearning for killing. The stronger the desire to kill, the faster ability stats grow. Breaks growth limits. Blade Devil. / Innate swordsman, capable of mastering sword skills with just a single glance. Blade Body. Increased strength growth rate. Increased agility growth rate. Devil Transformation, weaponization of the body. Development abilities. Swordsman, increases attack power when wielding a sword. Development abilities? Lynn was surprised. He didn't expect that upgrading blessings would also grant development abilities, similar to the upgrade system in Danmachi. Her devil rank had also increased from low class to mid class. And Lynn narrowed his eyes. Even her blade devil ability had undergone a minor change. Blade body? He didn't dwell on it for now, there was something more important. Because of this level up, it wasn't just Psycho who received an upgrade. As her master, Lynn also received direct feedback from her breakthrough. At that moment, his rank broke through from high-class devil to ultimate class devil. System notifications flooded his mind. Dash. Ding. Your peerage member Busujima Psycho has been promoted to mid-class devil. Ding. Your strength has increased. Ding. Your rank has advanced. Ding. Your skill evil pieces has undergone a minor transformation. Dash. Lynn's gaze locked onto the last notification. His evil pieces skill changed? This was his core ability, so he wasn't sure whether this change was good or bad. He immediately opened his status panel to check. Dash. Lynn Valifor. Race, Devil. Rank, Ultimate Class Devil. Authority, None. Peerage members, Kazuma Jayaka Uchiha, Yatsuya Maiko, Busujima Psycho, Marikawa Shizuka, Shiina Mahiru. Skills, Evil Pieces, Devil's Summoning Magic Release, Archivist Devil, Spirit Seer Devil, Blade Devil, Recovery Devil, Angel Devil. Dash. The rank did change. His ultimate class devil rank was now officially solidified. With 5 peerage members and Psycho's upgrade, his strength had advanced once again. In less than a month, he had been promoted twice. If others found out, they'd be insanely jealous. Especially someone like Rias, who had been stuck at high-class devil for a long time. The breakthrough in power was exhilarating. But the most important thing right now was evil pieces. Lynn clicked on it to investigate. Immediately, the world around him shifted. He suddenly found himself standing in an endless starry sky. His eyes widened slightly, confusion setting in. What is this? He rubbed his chin, scanning his surroundings. Then, he noticed 5 chess pieces floating in orbit around him. Lynn frowned in confusion. What does this mean? The 5 pieces likely represented Uchiha, Maiko, Psycho, Shizuka, and Mahiru. And he, as the master of the peerage, stood at the center. So, this entire starry sky represents my peerage. A long silence followed. Then, Lynn exhaled. After all that, I just got a fancy new visual. Lynn frowned in confusion. What does this mean? The 5 pieces likely represented Uchiha, Maiko, Psycho, Shizuka, and Mahiru. And he, as the master of the peerage, stood at the center. So, this entire starry sky represents my peerage. A long silence followed. Then, Lynn exhaled. After all that, I just got a fancy new visual. Seems a little underwhelming. Lynn muttered in disappointment. He didn't fully understand what was happening yet, but evil pieces didn't seem to be just for show. Maybe if he pushed it a little further, he could uncover something new. But he still wasn't sure if this change in evil pieces was due to his rank up or some other reason. For now, he set aside the mystery of evil pieces and turned his attention back to Psycho. After copying her blessings data, he observed her closely. Psycho, now completely bare, carefully read through the changes in her stats. Her rank had officially become mid-class devil. When she leveled up earlier, she had already felt the changes within her body. It was a qualitative transformation. There was now an explosive power hidden within her. She was certain she could now easily defeat her past self. Moreover, she could feel that her Blade Devil ability had undergone a subtle evolution. Sure enough. When she saw the new ability Blade Body added to Blade Devil, a flash of realization crossed her eyes. She had a thought. Shing! A sharp blade suddenly extended from Psycho's right arm, its metallic surface gleaming with a chilling light. So this is Blade Body. Lynn stroked his chin thoughtfully. Psycho, meanwhile, examined her new weapon with curiosity. It feels strange. It was as if it were a natural part of her body, an extension of her flesh and blood. She reached out her slender fingers and flicked the blade. Clang! A crisp metallic ring echoed. It's really sturdy. Psycho was very satisfied with this new ability. Now, she no longer had to spend time searching for a suitable weapon. The wooden sword she brought from school had already been battered beyond use after half a month of intense combat. This new ability came at the perfect time. Finally, she turned her attention to her development ability. Psycho murmured, Swordsman. It suits you perfectly. Lynn gently patted her head. Psycho narrowed her eyes like a satisfied cat, tilting her head slightly as she enjoyed her master's touch. Master, Psycho is now one step closer to becoming your sharpest sword. She blinked at him expectantly, clearly seeking a reward. Lynn smirked and tilted her chin up slightly. Between master and servant, words were unnecessary. Dash. Two figures laid in bed, one on top of the other. On either sides of the man's head, the lady's slender arms dug into the mattress, supporting her reclining figure. Behind her, the round curve of her plump ass curved out, exposing her vagina beneath, as well as the massive veined erection in it. Between her cheeks, it throbbed. And the surrounding pink soft tissues around her hole contracted and retracted, in tune with his intermittent throbs. Acton HMMNN. With a soft moan in her throat, Psycho leaned forward, snugging her breasts against Lynn's face. Head in between her round titties, his hands found the spilling curve of each boob at the sides. Kneading her firm bulging flesh, Lynn merged the two together, squeezing till they bulged out in each hand. Silently, his lips parted revealing a hungry opening and an eager tongue. He swallowed both nipples with a hungry suck and the Psycho moaned slightly. Then, in slow muttering sounds, his lips smacked against her nipples, both of them. As the cold air swept across her naked back, she remained still, recoiling only when his tongue retracted in slow twirls around the circumference of her nipples. Her arms trembled slightly. She leaned further, feeding him her luscious warm breasts. Time passed. Lynn wasn't sure how long, but the cold stud of her pink nipples began to pull away from his mouth as her heavy body reached away from him. Steadying herself, Psycho threw her head back, and reclined leaning all the way backwards till both her hands rested on his knees behind her. Lifted her fat thigh. In one fluid motion, still with his massive dick lodged on her butt, she swung it over his body, bringing it to rest on the other side. Slowly, she turned around facing his legs in a reverse cowgirl position. The curve of her waist bent inwards as she dropped forward, placing her hands on each of his kneecaps, giving Lynn a full view of her massive ass. Lynn gulped. Both his eyes flickered at the sensational sight. It wasn't just the fleshy bulging of each cheek, it was what laid in between. The tissue surrounding her pink hole had stretched, it puckered outwards, enveloping his girth in an unnatural squeeze. The sight of his own rod surprised him. It towered straight upwards, pulsing between her twin fleshy molds. His hands found each buttock, and he dug into the jiggly flesh. MMMPHH. He heard a silent moan from the other side as she curled her forward, pressing her hands against his knees. Lynn's knees buckled slightly under the combined weight of her crushing buttocks. Eyes wide open, Lynn's watched the first rise and fall of her buttock. With a heavy thud, her glorious buttocks heaved and fell. At her waist, a slow mesmerizing twirl followed each bounce, sliding his rod in and out in tight squeezes. Hey 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 hey! The bed squeaks began to rise. Hot breaths curled out her half-open mouth. Eyes closed, and hair fallen across her face, she slowly increased the pace. Her butt clapped and Lynn's body slid up and down the bed, watching his girth slide in and out of her mesmerizing buttocks. Matching the rising beating of her heart rate, her buttocks rose and fell on his cock, fucking him in tight squeezes and rotating her waist like it was made of water. Panting slowly, she bounced up and down on his ball, tightening her eyes, until she had her rhythm. As she heaved her ass upwards, she clenched her pussy in a tight squeeze, letting his rock-hard erection throb against her wall with each thrust, then released as her butt came down. She repeated it, about 24 times, before his dick began to throb. Psycho grinned deliriously, her master was about to come. Frantically, she gripped his knees tightly, wedging her weight against his legs, tilted her head to the side, and began to bounce hard. Her butt cheeks curled in the air, and flapped back in rapid fluid motions. A hot surge began to build up in Lynn. Splicing through, it rose upwards and expanding his girth. Psycho didn't give him time to ponder. The beefy curve of her waist tilted slightly to the left, targeting her pleasure glands, and slid his erection against herself. Master Acton. A burst of squeals erupted from her throat. Deep inside her, Lynn dick bulged dangerously. Instinctively, the hinges around his jaw slacked, dropping his chin even lower. It's coming. He groaned. Let it all out, Master. Psycho clenched her ass, drawing out his cum in tight squeezes, clasping his rod and refusing to let go. The first few drops of precum spilled out, trickling into her pussy in slimy trickles. Clenching her hole viciously, she sank her buttocks down on his pubis with a forceful thud, waiting for it. The semen came shooting shot out of his hole, sending explosive tingles through his entire groin. Psycho head arched backwards and curved upward toward the ceiling. No more. The room absorbed the moans and threw it back at them in echoes. Still throbbing violently, Lynn's dick shot out another long hot stream of cum into her pussy. Psycho tilted her head to the side, and mercilessly tugged on his cock, twerking and bouncing with vicious slapping cheeks. From his shoulders, to his chest, laps, and calves, goosebumps lined up every square inch. The hot eruptions continued and Lynn groaned, feeling the surge of pleasure with each emission. By the time the last gripping waves of his orgasm released him, he opened his eyes. In front of him, Psycho had collapsed. Her soft breasts nudged against the calves of his legs. He felt the firm, steady rhythm of her heartbeat on his legs. And in between her luscious butt cheeks, his dick still bulged defiantly. It wasn't over yet. Dash. This was their 10th position. Psycho was on her belly, lying flat on the sheets. Her legs were closed together, forcing out the full arch of her fleshy buttock. Lynn laid on top of her. His chest nudged against the warmth of her soft back. His left arm wrapped around her neck, cradling her slender throat between his elbows. The throb of his powerful cock drilled through her rectum this time. Using a lavender oil, his rock-hard cock slid in and out of her hole, splitting the bulge of her ass into 2 rich folds. Each soft cheek bounced back, jiggling in delightful bulging motions like balloons of water. Psycho was half-conscious at this point. Her lids over her eyes twitched sporadically. Her toes curled beneath her. And her voluptuous body slid across the bed in silent rustling movements. With each slippery forceful thrust, a silent gasp escaped from her mouth. Her eyes bulged open. Her long hair fluttered across her shoulders, covering her face with invasive strands. Her hands remained arched above her head, jiving with each deep stroke, bringing her fingertips close to each other, but never enough to touch one another. Laying on top of her, sweating through his pores, and dipping in and out of her, Lynn had to admit it. He was obsessed with this bitch's ass. When he fucked her anally, he felt himself filling her up completely. When she gasped, it was like she couldn't breathe properly. The squeeze on his dick was incredible. And each time he withdrew all the way to the tip, the clench of her bowel walls fought to keep him inside, milking his rod in dangerous sucking slurps. For Lynn, each stroke was a mini orgasm. And at that moment, he was about to have his 10th major one. His girth swelled and the semen surged upwards in sweet tingling waves. Below him, the psycho's body began to quake. Chest on her back, he felt her joints, ribs, and flesh shuddering. It only increased his pleasure, and he quickened his pace. Sharp cries, long and stretched, curled right out her throat, muffled by the thickness of the bed. His dick bulged as his semen sliced through. Acn. Psycho felt every inch of his journey and her sharp screams increased and increased in rising high notes. This time, he didn't hold back. Creaming inside her anus, he tightened his grip around her neck, blasting his hips against her massive buttocks. With her legs clamped shut, his dick sliced through her folds, wheezing as it parted her ass cheeks. Thick cream shot out, hot, sticky, and sweet. He dove into her again, slapping against her thighs, tightening her throat and exploding into her rectum. The psycho's rectum welcomed him. Her butt clenched, squeezing on him, and sucking out the semen from his tube. His dick cap pulsed excitedly, spilling his cum into her. So full. She cried out loud, feeling the tug of his pulsing dick, as well as the sticky fluid trickling down her asshole. And that night, someone couldn't sleep. Mahiru spent her first night at the peerage base in the zombie world. The experience was traumatizing. The noise was too much. Mahiru buried half of her face under the quilt, leaving only her caramel-colored eyes peeking out. Her eyes were a little moist. Dash. The next morning, Uchiha took one look at Mahiru's panda eyes. And immediately burst out laughing. This is the punishment for not going home. Embarrassed by Uchiha's teasing, Mahiru's face turned bright red, and she ran off to cook breakfast. But this action sent a wave of panic through Rei and Saya. Their main role in the peerage had been handling logistics and cooking. If they lost even that, Rei and Saya exchanged a look. A silent decision forming in their minds. Recently, they had come to understand Lynn's true identity. A devil. A creature that only existed in fantasy, yet now stood before them in the flesh. It was an unbelievable reality. But with everything that had happened recently, it wasn't even the craziest thing anymore. First, the apocalypse arrived, turning most humans into zombies. Then, they witnessed supernatural abilities firsthand. Psycho's sword aura. Uchiha's magic. Shizuka's healing skills. Miko's spirit sealing techniques. Even yesterday, a fallen angel with black wings had appeared out of nowhere. Every single one of them had overwhelming power. So, if Lynn was a devil, it kind of made sense, actually. After all, devils could become anything, right? What's more, everyone here was already part of Lynn's peerage, except for the two of them. Truthfully, they had wanted to join for a long time. But they were afraid Lynn wouldn't accept them. After all, he hadn't done anything to them so far. Then, when Psycho casually mentioned that logistics work also included keeping Lynn company, their minds started running wild. Would they be treated like that? Would Lynn do this and that to them? Their imaginations went out of control. And then, they started brainwashing themselves. It's the apocalypse, what other choice do we have? There aren't many men left, should we really die alone? Lynn is handsome, reliable, and has supernatural powers. If it's him, it's totally fine, right? They mentally prepared themselves. Even started expecting it. But nothing happened. This left them incredibly frustrated. But today, they weren't going to wait any longer. Dash. Coming out of Psycho's room, Lynn felt refreshed. Last night, he had thoroughly pushed Psycho to her limits, ensuring she understood that even as a mid-class devil, she couldn't slack off. As he entered the living room, he raised an eyebrow. Rei and Saya were staring at him intently. Lin hesitated. You too? Then. Master Lin, please let us become your family. Rei and Saya spoke in unison, with a standard dogza, their eyes burning with determination. Lin lowered his gaze, giving a serious evaluation. Rei Miyamoto and Saya Takagi had buried their heads extremely low, their bodies pressed against the ground, emphasizing their desperation. Lin simply watched them in silence. The atmosphere grew heavier, the tension thickening with each passing second. Neither of them dared to move. Yet as time stretched on, their hearts became increasingly weighed down by anxiety and doubt. A gloomy haze settled over them. From the side, Uchiha observed the scene of the two bowing before Lin. Over the past half-month, she had interacted with them quite a bit and had developed a decent impression of them. At first, they had shown a bit of spoiled behavior, but it wasn't anything harmful. Just by looking at their appearance and figures, it was obvious they had been popular girls before the apocalypse. It was natural for them to act a little arrogant at times. After all, if the world hadn't collapsed, they might have been living a comfortable, privileged life. Besides, both of them came from well-off families. Saya was even the daughter of a prominent household. But when the apocalypse hit, everything was destroyed. Yet, after half a month of living in this new reality, their roles in logistics had become more and more efficient. Their previous pampered attitudes had long since disappeared. At least for Uchiha. She didn't dislike them. She even wondered why Lin hadn't accepted them into the peerage yet. After all, they were beautiful girls. And based on her understanding of Lin, if he had no intention of recruiting them, he wouldn't have brought them along in the first place, right? But in the end, whether to accept them or not was Lin's decision. As one of Lin's peerage, Uchiha's role was simply to follow orders. So, she naturally wouldn't speak on their behalf. In the kitchen, Mahiru peeked her head out, still holding a cooking spoon. She whispered, "Huh? Aren't they already part of the family?" Uchiha shook her head. Mahiru blinked in surprise. Time continued to pass. Rei and Saya felt their last shred of hope slipping away. Just as despair began to settle in their hearts, Lin suddenly smiled. "All right." "Huh?" Rei and Saya snapped their heads up, their eyes wide with disbelief. The shock only lasted a second, before tears began to pour down their faces. Rei lifted a trembling hand to wipe away the tears that wouldn't stop flowing, choking out, I thought Master Lin didn't want us anymore." "Me too." Saya buried her face, sobbing uncontrollably. The emotional whiplash was overwhelming. One moment, they had felt cast into the depths of hell. And in the next, they had been accepted into paradise. Lin reached out, gently placing a hand on each of their heads. His thumbs softly stroked their hair. "Don't worry. Good children deserve rewards. You've both done well these past 2 weeks. I was always going to reward you." Rei and Saya burst into fresh tears. Overwhelmed, Rei crawled forward on her knees, throwing her arms around Lin's legs. She clung to him tightly, sobbing as if venting all the emotions she had suppressed during this entire ordeal. The confusion. The fear. The terror of the apocalypse. The constant anxiety of not knowing what the future held. Every single night. As long as Lin hadn't accepted her, she couldn't sleep peacefully. She would wake up in the middle of the night, terrified that she would see Lin's cold eyes and hear the words, "You're useless." Now that she had finally received his recognition, she felt like she wanted to melt into him completely. Saya, seeing this, also followed suit, throwing her arms around Lin's other leg. In an instant, Lin's legs were completely wrapped up by the two girls. His gaze flickered with an unreadable emotion, the corners of his lips curling into a deep smirk. "Ah! That's totally the smile of a devil." Uchiha silently complained in her heart. "Lin, you really are a devil." But she understood what he was doing. Lin had seen through Rei and Saya's true nature from the start. They were still clinging to the mentality of modern society, unconsciously acting spoiled and dependent. But today, that side of them was completely gone. They had been fully tamed by him. The devil's methods are terrifying. Huh? Wait, she was a devil too. Never mind, then. After they had calmed down, Lin patted their heads and sat down on the couch. Rei and Saya immediately stopped crying, instinctively following him. Kneeling before him once again, so he could easily rest his hands on their heads. They were learning fast. A flash of satisfaction crossed Lin's eyes. His patience these past 2 weeks had paid off. But honestly, he thought they would hold out a little longer before breaking. What he didn't know was that Rei and Saya had already given up resistance long ago. They had simply been too afraid to show it. Afraid that if they confessed too soon, he might actually reject them. The harsh reality of living in the apocalypse had already worn down their pride. Compared to other survivors, they were actually lucky. They had met Lynn. Giving themselves to him was completely worth it. No. It was profitable. Because Lynn would give them power in return. Lynn pinched their cheeks lightly before summoning 2 evil pieces. One last confirmation, once you become part of my peerage, you will completely belong to me. Yes. Yes. Yes, X2. Rei and Saya nodded furiously, their eyes filled with nothing but anticipation. Alright, then. Take them off. Without a moment's hesitation, Rei and Saya removed their clothes. They had never seen a devil reincarnation ceremony before. They didn't know why they had to undress. But Lin told them to take them off. So they took them off. And because he hadn't specified top or bottom, they just took everything off. Their movements were swift and decisive. Within seconds, the 2 of them were kneeling completely bare before him. Looking up at him with pitiful, expectant eyes, like obedient little puppies. Yet, if one looked closely, a faint pink flush covered their skin. This was the first time they had fully exposed themselves to a man. Even though they had stripped down without hesitation, it didn't mean they weren't embarrassed. But their fear outweighed their shame. They were terrified that if they hesitated even for a moment, they might lose their chance to become Lin's peerage. So, suppressing their embarrassment, they offered everything to him. Lin, on the other hand, remained calm. He had nothing to be embarrassed about. After all, they would belong to him soon anyway. His gaze openly swept over them, appreciating what would soon be his. Then, he held an evil piece in each hand and asked. Which do you prefer, front or back? Rei and Saya exchanged a quick look before answering in perfect unison. Whichever Master Lin prefers. Lin blinked. Then, he smirked. Good. Very enthusiastic. Since Rei and Saya insisted, Lin naturally respected their choice. You couldn't say Lin was undemocratic, he had given them the option to choose. But since they left the decision to him, what else could he do? He could only honor their wishes. With 2 swift movements, Lin's hands pressed against the soft curves of their chests, feeling the subtle bounce as he embedded the evil pieces within them. HNNNN. Hawkn. 2 distinct gasps filled the air, each carrying a different sensation to Lin's ears. Rei bit her lip lightly, her eyelashes trembling as she avoided looking at Lin, her entire body heating up. She wasn't sure whether it was due to the devil transformation ceremony or something else entirely. Saya, on the other hand, panted rapidly. Her legs weakened beneath her, forcing her to brace herself with her hands as she shifted from kneeling to sitting, unknowingly revealing a hint of her vagina. Rei turned her head just in time to witness this scene, and her heart immediately went cold. Her gaze toward Saya shifted subtly. Cunning woman. Flushing slightly, she realized Saya was intentionally acting weak, collapsing onto the floor, her legs slightly apart. Watching from the side, Uchiha was utterly stunned, her face turning bright red. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Piercing spear. Enhances penetration when using a spear, cold weapon. Strength increases at a faster rate. Takagi Saya. Low-class devil. Race, devil. Master, Lin Valifor. Stats. Strength, I0. Agility, I0. Durability, I0. Magic, I0. Inherent skills. Eye of Insight. Enhanced dynamic vision. Ability to perceive weaknesses. Lin raised an eyebrow. An ordinary reincarnated devil, neither of them had been transformed into a special type of devil. He had assumed the probability aspect of the evil pieces was just for show, but apparently, it worked seriously. His gaze toward Rei and Saya turned complicated. In a way, they were still rare devils within his peerage. Even if they hadn't reincarnated as special devils, the blessings system alone gave them enough potential to surpass ordinary devil followers. Take a certain crimson-haired heiress for example, he wouldn't name names, but her peerage didn't exactly scream talent. After all, the blessings system provided a direct path to the ranks of a or even beyond. In terms of potential, ordinary devils couldn't even compare to him. Lin shifted his focus back to Rei and Saya. Even though they weren't special devils, they had awakened inherent skills. This kind of talent. It was only fitting for protagonists who had survived an apocalyptic world. At that moment, a system notification appeared in Lin's mind. Ding! You have acquired new followers, low-class devils Miyamoto Rei and Takagi Saya. Ding! Your strength has slightly improved. Ding! You have obtained the skills Piercing Spear and Eye of Insight. Not bad. His skill panel had been enriched once again. Overall, these 2 skills were quite useful. Piercing Spear granted a penetration effect. Though it specified spears, he wondered if magical weapons could also benefit from it. Meanwhile, Eye of Insight was perfect for identifying weaknesses. It might not matter much when fighting top-tier devils, but against most opponents, pinpointing vulnerabilities was a major advantage. Rei and Saya, still unclothed, excitedly checked their status windows. Lynn had already explained the system to them, so they skipped over the basic attributes and focused on the final column. Piercing Spear. Eye of Insight. Upon seeing their respective skills, their eyes lit up with excitement. For Lynn, these were just useful abilities. But for Rei and Saya, they were game changers. Piercing Spear is perfect for me. Rei exclaimed. She had been a member of Fujimi Academy's Spear Club before everything happened. She was already familiar with polearms now. With this ability, it felt like an innate skill had awakened within her. Saya, meanwhile, was no less thrilled. Eye of Insight isn't bad either. Not only had it cured her myopia, but it automatically corrected her vision upon becoming a devil. With dynamic vision, she could observe everything more precisely. And now, she could also see weaknesses. Of course, the biggest change was they were devils now. Their physical capabilities had improved drastically, and within their bodies, they could feel an unfamiliar, yet potent energy. Through the blessings system, they understood that this energy was magic. They had finally stepped into the supernatural world. And it was all thanks to their master Lynn. Without hesitation, Rei and Saya knelt at Lynn's feet, their bodies pressed low in devotion. Master Lynn, please reward us for serving you, X2. Lynn smirked. They had undergone training, wasn't it only natural to reap the rewards? Wait. Hearing the shameless request from Rei and Saya, Uchiha suddenly bolted from the kitchen, all hesitation abandoned. But the living room was empty. Lynn, Rei and Saya were nowhere to be seen. Wait. I haven't even done it yet, damn it. Chunin Academy. Faculty Office. Natsuki Minamiya looked at Uchiha and couldn't help but sigh. Why are you requesting leave for Lynn again? Oof. Uchiha felt like an arrow had struck her heart. She didn't want to be doing this. She had already been strategizing how to sneak into Lynn's bed herself. Yet, somehow, she got cut in line. Not once. Not twice. Uchiha was so frustrated she could cough up blood. Who would have thought that Rei and Saya, who seemed so innocent on the surface, could be that bold? It was one thing for them to let Lynn train them in the living room. But at the very end, they suddenly went on the offensive. What was she supposed to do? Storm into Lynn's room, yank them off his bed, and demand they wait their turn? She couldn't do that. Besides, Rei and Saya had clearly made up their minds before taking that step. Uchiha had no valid reason to stop them. Dash. Outside the faculty office. Mahiru watched Uchiha, who seemed to be in a daze, and couldn't help but ask, Uchiha, are you really okay? Ever since returning from the zombie world, she had been acting a little strange. I'm fine. Uchiha forced herself to snap out of it. After leaving Natsuki Minamiya's office, her mind had been occupied with one thought. How can I accidentally end up in Lynn's bed? Her wine-red eyes flickered with determination. She needed Psycho's help. Dash. 3 p.m. Supernatural Investigation Club. Lynn-san, here's my application to join the club. Mahiru handed her completed form to Lynn. Uchiha clapped her hands in celebration. Awesome. That makes 4 members in the Supernatural Investigation Club. Though, aside from their club leader Lynn, the entire roster consisted of beautiful girls. After Mahiru completed the formalities, the group prepared to return to the zombie world together. Just as they were about to leave, Lynn suddenly spoke. Mahiru, stay behind for a bit. I'll take you somewhere later. Mahiru blinked in confusion. Hi. Tilting her head slightly, she hesitated for a moment before nodding. Okay. Uchiha and Maiko exchanged glances but didn't pry. Without further questions, they stepped through the portal to the zombie world. Lynn pulled out his phone, checking his recent messages from Rias. Rias, stray devils? Rias, there are some in Kiao Town. I usually use them for Konoko's training. Rias, if you need them, you can teleport over anytime. I've already lifted the barrier for you. Lynn, got it. That was from earlier. After realizing that Mahiru's ability couldn't fully manifest on zombies, Lynn thought of another potential solution, rogue devils. However, searching for one on his own would be like looking for a sword that had fallen into a river. So, he reached out to Miss Gremory, the de facto ruler of Uchiha Town. Sure enough. For Rias, dealing with stray devils was no problem at all. Perhaps he could even gain something extra from this trip? A well-enchanted weapon, maybe? Ideally, one with holy attributes. Let's go. Lynn gently wrapped an arm around Mahiru's waist. As a teleportation circle lit up beneath them, the two vanished. Dash. Uchiha Town. Uchiha Academy, old school building, occult research club. A pillar of purple light descended. Lynn and Mahiru stepped out of the teleportation circle. Rias, who had been adjusting her clothes, paused. I think I came at the right time. Lynn raised an eyebrow as he took in Rias's current appearance. She was only half-dressed, wearing a black lace bra and a loosely buttoned white dress shirt. Rias rolled her eyes at him. If you had come a few minutes earlier, you might have been greeted with a blast of destruction magic instead. With a casual shrug, she fastened the rest of her buttons. She wasn't flustered in the slightest. Then, without hiding anything, she picked up her skirt from the floor, adjusted it, and sat down on the sofa. As she lazily ran a hand through her damp crimson hair, a few stray water droplets flicked off. Clearly, she had just finished a bath. And just so happened to be mid-dress when Lynn teleported in. That said, Rias wasn't particularly bothered. Besides, she had a favorable impression of Lynn. Her gaze shifted to Mahiru, the blonde girl standing beside him. Is this your new peerage member? Rias studied Mahiru with mild curiosity. Something about her felt different from a typical devil. Shiana Mahiru, Lynn introduced, patting her head with a smile. Cute, right? Mahiru lowered her head, feeling a little shy. Lynn's hand was warm. Big, too. But why did it feel like he was treating her like a child? That part troubled her. She really is cute, Rias admitted. No matter how she looked at it, Mahiru was undeniably a beautiful girl. She had to give credit, Lynn had good taste. What surprised her, however, was how quickly he was forming his peerage. You work fast, Rias mused. I didn't expect you to have 2 followers already in less than a month. She couldn't help but compare herself. It had been 2 years since she received her evil pieces, yet her peerage still only consisted of Akeno and Konoko. Even for something as simple as recruiting pawns, she hadn't found a suitable candidate. At this rate, Rias sighed inwardly. Would she ever be able to achieve her goals? 2. Lynn fell silent for a moment, debating whether or not to correct her. After a brief pause, he decided to tell the truth. Actually, Mahiru is my 5th follower. Rias. Rias was visibly surprised. 5. Hadn't it been less than a month since she gave Lynn his evil pieces? What kind of efficiency was this? Did he just randomly find people and recruit them into his peerage? Rias frowned slightly but quickly relaxed. After all, this was Lynn's business, she had no right to interfere. Besides, given the presence of Uchiha in his peerage, the overall quality wasn't bad. Of course, what she didn't know was, although Mahiru was his 5th, Lynn's peerage was already far beyond just 5 members. Earlier that morning, he had recruited 2 more. Mr. Lynn, your black tea. As always, Akeno gracefully served Lynn his tea. Mahiru was also given a cup. Thank you, Mahiru said politely as she accepted the tea. Akeno, it's been a while. Oh my, I didn't expect Mr. Lynn to still remember me, Akeno teased, holding the tray in both hands. Her eyes curved mischievously. I thought you were only interested in petting cats and had completely forgotten that our dear president had other peerage members. By now, both Rias and Akeno were well aware of how often Lynn and Konoko spent time together, especially gaming. At one point, Rias had even worried that Konoko was about to be stolen from her peerage. Fortunately, Lynn had enough restraint not to take her away. Hearing Akeno's playful remark, Rias couldn't help but recall this concern. She shot Lynn a slightly resentful look. Lynn, however, remained completely calm as he sipped his tea. I just like petting cats. Is there a problem with that? Rias sighed. But you're petting someone else's cat. Bucko, senpai, I'm right here. Konoko, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. Her expression remained completely flat. Please consider my feelings before talking like that. Rias coughed awkwardly and quickly changed the subject. So, what exactly do you need a stray devil for, Lynn? Lynn simply smiled. You'll find out soon enough. After all, Rias and the others would be coming along. Since this was her territory, it was natural for her to be cautious. Uchiha Town, abandoned church. Rias and her group arrived alongside Lynn and Mahiru via teleportation. There's a stray devil residing here, Rias explained. It's at the mid-class devil level. This was the weakest stray devil she could find in Uchiha Town. After briefing them, she pushed open the church doors. Creak. The old, rusted hinges groaned loudly, echoing through the dimly lit church. A shadow stirred within. Hee hee hee. A deep, raspy chuckle sounded. Another bunch of little fools walking straight to their deaths. The stray devil, its back facing them, slowly turned around. A grotesque figure came into view. Its entire body was jet black, and instead of regular arms, it had massive, clawed wings that stretched out like twisted hands. Its bloodshot eyes gleamed with malevolence. Drool dripped from its gaping mouth, sizzling as it corroded the floor beneath it. SSSHHH. The acidic saliva ate into the stone, producing a sharp, hissing sound. However, faced with this monstrous sight, Lynn and the others remained completely unfazed. To them, this was nothing more than a mid-tier devil trying to act intimidating. Of course, Mahiru seeing a stray devil for the first time felt a slight chill run down her spine. The zombie world had been frightening, sure. But the creatures there lacked intelligence. This was different. She instinctively moved closer to Lynn, gripping the sleeve of his coat. Meanwhile, the stray devil realizing its scare tactic had failed stood there, momentarily awkward. It sniffed the air. And suddenly, its bloodshot eyes cleared slightly. A devil. It's a devil. Hadn't it already escaped from the underworld? Damn it. I already fled to this place, and you still won't let me go. It roared in fury. But despite its aggressive words, its feet subconsciously shifted backward. Clearly, it had not had an easy time on the run. Akeno smiled faintly. Oh? Looks like there's been a bit of a misunderstanding. Then, she turned to Mahiru. Mahiru. Ah, yes. Mahiru instinctively responded when she heard her name. Then, she realized what Lynn wanted her to do. She clenched her fists, silently cheering herself on. Shiana Mahiru, you can do this. Don't let Mr. Lynn down. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. Rias furrowed her brows. Are you sure about this? She asked. Mahiru's strength is still just low-class devil level, isn't it? Lynn paused, considering. You're right. Snap. He casually snapped his fingers. And in an instant, glowing magic chains erupted from the ground beneath the stray devil, wrapping tightly around its body. Clank. Clank. The heavy chains rattled as they locked the creature in place. What the hell is this? The stray devil struggled violently, but the chains didn't budge. In fact, they tightened the more it fought. Rias and Akeno's expressions shifted slightly. Akeno, who had been smiling moments ago, now wore a serious look. She exchanged a glance with Rias. Lynn's casual display just now. It wasn't just about magical control. It also revealed something crucial about his magic quality. To pull off a spell like that so effortlessly. At the very least, neither of them could have done it so easily. Rias took note of this and turned her attention back to Mahiru. She wanted to see what Lynn was planning. Mahiru, meanwhile, let out a small breath of relief. Now that the terrifying stray devil was restrained, she felt a little less nervous. Then, under everyone's gaze, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a pistol. Rias. Before anyone could say a word, Mahiru raised the gun. A dazzling white light gathered at the barrel's tip. Bang! The shot rang out. Ah! The stray devil howled in agony. The holy light burned into its flesh, spreading like a toxin. Its skin peeled away instantly, exposing muscle, veins, and even bone. If it wasn't restrained by Lynn's chains, it might have been able to resist. But now? It could do nothing but scream. Mid-class devils sure are durable, Lynn mused. Satisfied, he turned to Mahiru. Go ahead, Mahiru, fire away as much as you want. Mahiru. Stray devil. Is this, the light attribute? Rias narrowed her eyes as she observed Mahiru continuously testing the effects of her light-based attacks on the stray devil. Lynn, did you kidnap an angel to be your follower? An angel? Lynn thought about Mahiru's nickname and chuckled. You could say that. Rias. She was starting to admire him a little. No wonder he wanted to find a stray devil. So this was all to test how much the light attribute could affect devils? Wait. Rias's expression stiffened. Why was Lynn testing this? A sudden sense of unease crept into her mind. This is to counter the old Mo faction, isn't it? Her guess was spot on. Lynn was indeed preparing for that possibility. Seeing the effectiveness of Mahiru's attacks would help him gauge their potential in future battles. If those fanatics ever came knocking, this could be his trump card. Dash. As Rias continued watching, another thought surfaced. If an angel reincarnated as a devil, would they retain their light-based abilities? Come to think of it. She, too, had a half-fallen angel in her peerage. Yet she had never seen Akeno use light-based magic. Pretending to glance at Akeno, Rias noticed her sudden silence. Was it because of her mixed blood that she refused to use it? Or, had she lost the ability entirely? Regardless of the answer, Rias chose not to bring it up. Akeno's identity was a painful subject. She had no intention of forcing her to relieve it. Dash. A while later, Rias turned back to the stray devil. It had stopped breathing. Her eyelid twitched slightly. Brutal. Meanwhile, Mahiru was exhausted, panting lightly from exertion. Rias glanced at the weapon in her hand and commented. A human weapon isn't really suited for her. Oh. Hearing that, Lynn's eyes lit up with interest. Then, what would be suitable, Rias? Rias. She gave him a long look. Do I look like Santa Claus to you? Lynn shrugged. Can't help it, I happen to know a beautiful, kind-hearted, wealthy, and powerful young lady. Rias. Flattery, I? With a sigh, she stretched out her hand, summoning a magic circle in the air. A moment later, a rifle appeared in her grasp, elegantly designed, intertwined with white and gold. Take this blazing spear. Lynn's eyes gleamed with interest. Does it have a holy attribute? Rias. You're picking weapons now? Uchiha Academy, a cult research club. Back in the club room, Rias let out a deep sigh and rubbed her forehead. I can't believe I just gave away the blazing spear like that. Akeno approached, setting down a fresh cup of tea. Picking up her drink, Rias complained. Akeno, why didn't you stop me? Akeno simply smiled. At that moment, Bucko was already under the influence of a spell called Sweet Talk. As for me, she chuckled. I was powerless. Rias sighed again. Fine. Let's just think of it as an investment. Yes, an investment. She did have high hopes for Lynn. Though they communicated frequently over the phone, they had only met 3 times in person. And yet, each time she saw him, he had changed in some subtle way. Especially this time. With a serious expression, she turned to Akeno. Akeno, don't you think Lynn has become more unfathomable? Akeno finished her sentence for her. Rias hesitated. That was exactly what she wanted to say. Lynn's strength seemed far greater than before. It wasn't just an illusion. Unfathomable, Akeno's expression shifted slightly. She still remembered the black lightning that had flickered at Lynn's fingertips during their last meeting. She spoke softly. Bucko, isn't it possible that he's always been unfathomable? And you're only noticing it now? Rias was momentarily stunned. Really? She wasn't sure anymore. The first time they met, she had only been impressed by his personality and appearance. But today felt different. And her gaze darkened slightly. She thought about Lynn's peerage. Uchiha, Mahiru. Both of them had ridiculously high potential. An archivist devil and an angel turned devil? What about the others? Could it be, all of Lynn's followers are children with special abilities? She muttered to herself. I really need to get to know Lynn better. Rias had made up her mind. At the very least, she needed to ask him about his method of recruitment. Akeno narrowed her eyes playfully. Bucko wanting to get to know a man deeply. Isn't that a sign of love? You're overthinking things, Akeno. Rias smiled and shook her head. Lynn is Sana's fiancé. Why would I have any thoughts about him? Akeno raised an eyebrow. Oh? But isn't President Sana planning to annul that engagement? Rias let out a knowing chuckle. I don't think she wants to cancel it anymore. Knock, knock. A knock on the door interrupted their conversation. Rias. Speak of the devil. She exchanged a look with Akeno. Then, sighing, she said. Akeno, go invite Sana in. Akeno, yes. She could barely suppress her amusement. Shaking her head, she walked over and opened the door. A moment later, Sana entered the club room, taking a seat across from Rias. For a while, she was silent. Then, after some hesitation, she finally spoke. Rias didn't bother pretending to be surprised. You came to ask about Lynn, didn't you? Sana's face reddened slightly. Her eyes darted around awkwardly. Seeing this, Rias rubbed her temples. Then, after a brief sigh, she gave Sana a rundown of Lynn's latest activities. Hearing this, Sana frowned in concern. 5 followers already, isn't that too fast? She wasn't sure how she felt about it. What if they were all mediocre recruits? Rias, however, withheld certain details. Just as she hadn't told Sana about Uchiha's abilities last time. She wasn't about to reveal Mahiru's abilities now, either. Lynn had trusted her with that information. She wasn't going to casually share it. Still, seeing Sana's worried expression, Rias smirked slightly. Isn't this a good thing for you? If things really do come down to a rating game to settle your engagement, wouldn't it be easier for you to win? Sana fell silent for a moment. Then, with a firm expression, she declared. I won't participate in a rating game. If she did, it would expose Lynn's surname to the old Mu faction. She would never do that. Rias remained silent for a few seconds. Then, she gave her a gentle reminder. You do realize, Sira knows about the engagement, right? If this situation drags on, who knows what she'll do? Sana's expression froze. She thought of her sister. I'll go talk to her. Chapter 50, Governor of the Fallen Angels. It's good that you understand the seriousness of this matter. Rias only gave a brief reminder and chose not to say more. After all, this was Sana's issue to deal with. But after spending time with Lynn, she didn't want unnecessary complications affecting him. After all, Lynn was also a victim in all this. He had been forced into this engagement. Even when Sana had agreed to cancel it, the higher UPS hadn't allowed it, leaving the rating game as the only solution. It wasn't so different from what she had experienced herself. Thinking about it, Rias couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. But at least she had the protection of her family. Her brother was a Mu. Lin, on the other hand, was alone. Not only that, he had to hide his true identity and avoid being discovered by the old Mu faction. Banished to the human world at a young age, only to be later dragged into noble politics. How miserable! A sudden surge of maternal instinct welled up in Rias. She regretted giving away an enchanted weapon so easily earlier. Even if it was nearly strong enough to be classified as an artificial sacred gear, that wasn't the point. If Lin wanted it, he could have it. Her gaze shifted to Sana across from her, and a thought crossed her mind. Lin's peerage probably lacked light and holy-based spells, right? Ahem. Sana looked at Rias in confusion. After a moment of consideration, Rias spoke. If you're really concerned about Lin, why not prepare some light and holy arts for him? Sana's confusion deepened. Light and holy arts? For Lin? A devil? Has Rias gone insane? Sana's skeptical expression made Rias freeze for a moment. Wait. How was she supposed to explain this without exposing Mahiru's abilities? Rias fell silent, struggling for an answer. Seeing this, Akeno chuckled and stepped in. President Sana, our dear Bucko doesn't quite understand it either, but for some reason, Mr. Lin seems to have a use for them. Which wasn't a lie. After all, when Rias had gifted Lin the blazing spear, the first thing he asked was whether it had a holy attribute. I see. Sana suddenly understood. So it was Lin who wanted them. Though she had no idea why a devil like him would need light and holy magic. If it was Lin, then it couldn't be helped. Sana thought for a moment. Light and holy attributes were natural counters to devils. Whether as spells or weapons, it was rare for devils to acquire them. But that didn't matter. She looked at Rias seriously. Rias, there have been quite a few fallen angel pests in Konoha town lately. Don't you think they're getting a bit too noisy? Rias. Sana, isn't that a bit too extreme? If you're not careful, you might start a diplomatic incident. Chunin Academy, Supernatural Investigation Club. Miss Rias, you are such a generous person. Mahiru carefully examined the blazing spear in her hands and couldn't help but sigh in admiration. Not only was the weapon beautiful in its design, but it was perfectly suited for someone like her. Its compact form fit her hands well, making it easy to handle. And most importantly, its performance was outstanding. When she infused it with light energy, there was no resistance, the process was seamless. The weapon's magic efficiency was also incredibly high. Compared to her old, human-made firearm, this was on a completely different level. Lin nodded. According to Rias, this weapon is close to being classified as an artificial sacred gear. Sacred gear? Mahiru blinked in confusion. The term was unfamiliar to her. Lin explained. Weapons made by gods are called sacred gears. Mahiru's eyes widened slightly. Wait. Gods exist in this world. Lin raised an eyebrow. There are devils, why wouldn't there be gods? That's fair. Mahiru looked embarrassed for even asking. Lin's gaze deepened slightly. Mahiru, this world is far bigger than you think. If you don't want to remain at the bottom, then work hard. Keep pushing forward, until you reach the very top. He had never forgotten the hidden threat left behind by his surname. The old Mu faction. That storm would explode sooner or later. Right now, even as an ultimate class devil, his strength wasn't enough. Mahiru was momentarily stunned by Lin's words. Then, with newfound determination, she clenched her fists. I'll do my best. For Mr. Lin. After her conversation with Lin, Mahiru's motivation soared. She barely took a break. And immediately set off for the zombie world to grind experience. Watching her determined figure disappear through the portal, Lin couldn't help but smile slightly. I'm looking forward to it. He had high expectations for Mahiru. A fallen devil. So convincing that it was impossible to tell apart from a real one. If she ever ran into actual fallen angels, something interesting might happen. And speaking of that, whoosh! Lin unfurled his wings. Unlike Mahiru's, 8 majestic wings spread out behind him. A sly smirk crossed his lips. The position of governor of the fallen angels. Maybe I should consider it. Is someone cosplaying in that classroom? At Chunin Academy, a blonde girl, exuding a striking presence, curiously observed the scene before her. Ah, it's gone. Inside the Supernatural Investigation Club, Lin retracted his wings back into his body. Impersonating a fallen angel governor. It was somewhat amusing, but not particularly thrilling. Right now, his peerage's growth was the top priority. At the current rate, the zombies in the base within the zombie world were almost wiped out. If this continued, their training efficiency would only decline. Should I consider relocating the base? No rush. I'll wait for Psycho's report first. After she was promoted to a mid-class devil, he had assigned her to explore further regions alone. Hopefully, she would discover something useful, perhaps even a suitable new base. Additionally, now that Psycho had reached mid-class, he wasn't sure if fighting zombies still provided her with meaningful experience. Lynn opened his system panel. The devil's summoning skill remained unchanged. He still didn't know when he would gain access to a second different world. Nowadays, his peerage had no shortage of talent, and they already controlled one world, making common resources readily available. Typically, Lynn arranged for his members to gather rare materials and sell them in the main world. This ensured that even after graduation, none of them had to worry about finding a job. Lynn even felt that the house he had purchased earlier was becoming a little cramped. Fortunately, Sana had gifted him a house before, which wasn't bad at all. Speaking of Sana, his mind naturally drifted to Rias. Now that I think about it, Rias really gave me a generous gift this time. The blazing spear was a perfect match for Mahiru. The basic magic knowledge from before might not have been a big deal. But the super-tier magic she gave him, lightning strike, was clearly a gesture of goodwill, offered just because she was curious about Uta's abilities. And this time? A mere compliment, and she gifted him such a valuable weapon? Rias truly saw him as a friend. After considering it, Lynn decided it was worth maintaining his connection with such a generous benefactor. He pulled out his phone and found Rias's contact online. Lynn, Rias, the gift was perfect. Thanks for this, I'll treat you to a meal sometime. After sending the message, he stroked his chin. This should be fine, right? Just then, his phone rang. Lynn assumed it was Rias, but instead, it was a notification from the chat group. Busujima Psycho, Master, during my exploration, I found a woman claiming to be Takaji-saya's mother. Busujima Psycho, image.jpg. Clicking on the picture, a woman with long, purple hair and a mature allure came into view. She looked utterly exhausted. Drill twin ponytail girl. Drill twin ponytail girl, that's mom. Lynn raised an eyebrow. Seriously? He recalled that Takaji Yuriko should have had a temporary safe house, right? After pondering for a moment, he responded in the group. Sigma man, what's her condition? Busujima Psycho, when I found her, she was completely drained and about to be surrounded by zombies. I rescued her just in time. Inside the zombie world. Takaji-saya stared at the group messages, her heart pounding with anxiety. Sigma man, in that case, bring her back. Ugh. Saya covered her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes. Mom. She's safe. Meanwhile, at Konoha Academy. Inside the occult research club. Sana silently stared at Rias. Rias, gripping her phone, awkwardly twirled her hair with her fingers. Earlier, when she had left her phone on the table, Sana had accidentally caught a glimpse of the message from Lynn. And now, things had become like this. Sana's voice was calm but sharp. When did your relationship become so close? Dinner? No, this was a date invitation. And what's with the gift? Did Rias secretly give Lynn a present behind her back? Ahaha, it's just a trivial item, Rias replied with a forced laugh. Well. Blazing Spear was hardly trivial anymore. Rias remained composed. I've been helping Lynn out quite a bit lately. Isn't it natural for him to treat me to a meal in return? She carefully observed Sana's reaction and felt relieved when she didn't seem too upset. Then, with a firm nod, she solemnly declared, Don't worry, Sana. He's your fiancé. How could I possibly do anything to your fiancé? Hearing this, Sana let out a subtle sigh of relief. She wasn't sure why, but she felt reassured. However, there was something she had overlooked. Due to how things had played out when she first met Lynn, she had been hesitant to meet him directly. Even when she wanted to give him something, she had done so through Rias. As a result, Rias and Lynn's relationship had naturally deepened. And yet, she was supposed to be his fiancé. This couldn't continue. Regardless, watching Rias and Lynn grow closer made her uncomfortable. Sana had to take action. Meanwhile, back in the zombie world. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Lynn. Thank you for taking care of my daughter all this time. Lynn looked at her with an odd expression. This mother and daughter pair really knew how to act humble. Lynn looked down at the voluptuous beauty before him. Takaji Yuriko lowered her head, allowing Lynn to examine her. After hearing everything Psycho had told her along the way, she understood that the man in front of her was the absolute ruler of this place. More importantly, she had learned that her daughter was alive and well here. The overwhelming relief of knowing Saya was safe filled her heart with gratitude toward Lynn. She was so thankful that she wouldn't complain, even if she had to endure something extreme from him. At the same time, she couldn't forget the breathtaking display of power from Psycho when she rescued her. The dense horde of zombies had been decapitated in an instant, collapsing like dominoes. It was an unbelievable supernatural feat. Seeing it firsthand, Yuriko fully accepted that this world contained powers beyond human comprehension. Even someone as strong as Psycho acknowledged Lynn as her master, without the slightest resistance. There had to be a reason for this. She might not fully grasp it yet, but one thing was clear, Lynn stood at the pinnacle here. So, her best option was simple: be obedient. She even took the initiative to display her worth. If she wanted to stay, she couldn't afford to be useless. She didn't have any naive expectations that Lynn would take her in just because she was Saya's mother. Yet, after enduring so many days of exhaustion, running for her life, and desperately searching for her daughter, she was mentally and physically drained. She could collapse at any moment. Noticing her condition, Lynn didn't say much. He simply ordered, "Saya, take your mother to rest first." "Thank you, master." Saya looked at Lynn gratefully, her eyes slightly red, before helping her mother to a room. "Master." Yuriko cast her daughter a strange look. She couldn't tell how Saya had been living these days. But she had changed. Calling him master so naturally. It was an unexpected and bold way to address someone. Yet, Yuriko could tell Saya was calling him that of her own free will. Before she had a chance to speak with her daughter, exhaustion took over, and she collapsed onto the bed, falling into a deep sleep. Living room. Rei, watching the touching reunion between Saya and her mother, felt her eyes sting with emotion. Is my mother still alive? Lynn's bedroom. Lynn updated Psycho's blessings. His brows furrowed. There's barely any increase. Psycho silently examined the status screen in her hands. It looks like zombies no longer provide me with any growth. It can't be helped. Psycho let out a sigh. Cutting down zombies had become effortless, easier than slicing vegetables. Naturally, they no longer provided any meaningful experience. Lynn thought for a moment, then said, "In that case, when I get the chance, I'll take you to my world for training." Even if the efficiency wasn't as high, at least she'd still gain some experience. Psycho's eyes lit up with excitement. Master's world? I'm looking forward to it. She wanted to know more about him. After that, Psycho gave Lynn a detailed report on her exploration progress. Then, they moved on to something more enjoyable. Uchiha, hiding in the corner, secretly eavesdropped for a while. Her face burned red. She clenched her fists. Tomorrow absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely must send herself to Lynn's bed. Late at night. Takagi Yuriko was jolted awake by a high-pitched sound, stretched thin with tension. She turned her head. Her daughter's face came into view. But it wasn't the peaceful sleeping face she expected. Saya's cheeks were flushed, her breathing ragged, her eyes hazy with an intoxicating glow. Yuriko's body stiffened, then instinctively glanced downward. Her pupils contracted sharply. As if sensing her mother's gaze, Saya turned her head. Their eyes met. Saya froze. Then, her entire face went beet red. She suddenly sprang upright, her hands flailing wildly, as if scrambling to find an explanation. But words failed her. It was impossible to explain this clearly. Yuriko observed her daughter's frantic embarrassment. Then, she merely smiled softly, stood up, and gently patted Saya's head. With a voice full of nostalgia, she murmured, "Saya, you've grown up." HNGH. Saya wished she could vanish on the spot. Seeing her daughter's distress, Yuriko gracefully changed the subject. "Saya, tell me about this place." She had only just arrived. Her priority had been finding her daughter, so she hadn't fully processed the nature of this world yet. Saya, latching onto the lifeline of conversation, immediately began explaining everything she had experienced so far. A while later, Yuriko finally understood everything. The master of this place was actually a devil. And every woman here was his follower. Even her own daughter was no exception. It wasn't difficult for her to accept. She had already witnessed Psycho's supernatural power firsthand. It was impossible to deny reality at this point. For her daughter to belong to another person? She felt no sadness or resentment about it. In the apocalypse, survival was already a miracle. Saya wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. She had no worries about food or safety, and she had even gained supernatural abilities. Why should Yuriko feel sad? If anything, she should be grateful. The only regret she had was Saya had taken so long to submit herself to Lynn. Wouldn't this put her at a disadvantage compared to the others? If it were her, she would have secured her position within a few days. But Yuriko gently reached out, brushing Saya's hair. Saya was still young. She probably didn't even realize the benefits of being close to someone like Lynn. She didn't understand just how lucky she was to have met him in the apocalypse. After all, with Saya's stubborn personality, it was already surprising she had come this far. Yuriko sighed again. Saya, you've grown up. But that wasn't enough. Compared to the others, Saya was falling behind. Both in Lin's favor and in everything else. And besides, what use could she offer in a place full of devils? Yuriko's eyes hardened with resolve. Saya, I'll help you. Hi. Saya blinked, confused by her mother's sudden declaration. Yuriko simply smiled mysteriously and said nothing. Here, she had no practical skills to contribute. The next morning. Early dawn. Uchiha dragged Saiko into a secluded corner. Her face was flushed with hesitation. Saiko, tonight, can I ask you? Saiko's eyes lit up, and she smiled in relief. Uchiha, are you finally taking this step? As the most traditional woman of the Busujima family, she was always happy to help her master expand his harem. Uchiha crossed her arms, her tone carrying a hint of shyness. Tisk, it's because you're hugging Lynn too much. Was that true? Saiko paused, reflecting on the accusation. It, actually did seem true. Feeling slightly guilty, she offered an awkward smile. There was no helping it, it was just too tempting. But still, she spoke with a solemn nod. Sorry, I won't do it again. It was only fair not to monopolize their master. Uchiha opened her mouth, momentarily stunned. As expected. This woman was the type all men adored. Her expression turned complicated. She had lost, completely. But tonight, she would win it all back. Clenching her fists, her eyes burned with determination. Saiko, I'll leave it to you tonight. No problem. Saiko readily agreed to Uchiha's request. It was just a matter of switching rooms, no big deal. Still, she was curious about what Uchiha was planning. 3 p.m. Inside the Supernatural Investigation Club. Uchiha first returned to the home she shared with Lynn, carefully packing a certain combat outfit into her bag. Then, with a highly suspicious aura, she snuck into the Supernatural Investigation Club, her face flushed. Lynn noticed her odd behavior, raising a brow. Uchiha, are you evolving or something? His teasing remark made Uchiha react like a startled cat. She shuddered before blurting out nonsense, evolve? Haha, yeah, something like that. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Lynn eyed her suspiciously. Uchiha, in turn, clutched her bag tightly, her eyes darting everywhere, sweat forming on her forehead. Just then. Knock, knock. A sudden knock at the club room door. Lynn was surprised. Even Maiko and Mahiru were momentarily stunned. People actually visit the Supernatural Investigation Club. Maiko and Mahiru exchanged puzzled glances, sensing the peculiarity of the situation. Only Uchiha looked relieved, as if she had been saved by the interruption. Come in. Though surprised, Lynn saw no reason to turn away visitors. Swish. The door swung open. A girl with long black hair and a cold, refined aura stepped inside. Her sharp eyes scanned the supernatural-themed room with curiosity. Behind her, a girl with bun-like twin tails timidly peeked in. Noticing the gazes of Lynn and the others, the second girl smiled awkwardly before greeting them hesitantly. Hello. The Supernatural Investigation Club gave off an ominous vibe. Could there really be ghosts or something? She kept nervously glancing around, trying to spot anything unusual, while at the same time, hiding behind the black-haired beauty. It was Yukinashita Yukino and Uegahama Yui. Lynn instantly recognized them. But he had no idea why they were here. Is this the Supernatural Investigation Club? Yukino's cold, crisp voice carried through the room. Her sharp eyes took in the people inside. One guy, surrounded by 3 incredibly beautiful girls. Her brows furrowed ever so slightly. It is, Lynn replied, pointing at the club nameplate on the table. Yukino, still expressionless, tilted her head slightly. Sorry. For a second, I thought I walked into a harem club by mistake. Maiko and Mahiru blinked, visibly surprised. Then, their expressions became subtle. Because, well, she wasn't exactly wrong. HOH. Uchiha gave Yukino an amused look. Sharp girl. Her observations were on point. Yet, no one refuted her statement. Yukino's frown deepened. What kind of club was this? She turned her scrutinizing gaze toward the only male in the room. You're the president of the Supernatural Investigation Club. Lynn simply stared at her, his red eyes calm and unreadable. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. And yet, just his gaze alone. Yukino's breath hitched. Even though he was merely looking at her, she felt an indescribable pressure weighing down on her chest. It was suffocating. Her lips parted slightly as she bit down lightly, her pride refusing to let her falter. But deep down, fear crept in. This man. Her heart raced, sweat forming on her forehead as her body subtly trembled. Why? Why was she reacting like this? Her breathing grew erratic. Yukino. Yui, noticing her distress, gently tugged on her sleeve. And just like that, the pressure vanished. Plop. Yukino's legs gave out, and she collapsed onto the cold floor. Yukino. Yui gasped, immediately squatting down to check on her. Ha, ha. Yukino panted heavily, her eyes dazed. Yukino, are you okay? Yui, worried, started sweating herself. It took a moment, but Yukino slowly regained her senses. With a weak wave of her hand, she muttered, I'm fine. Bracing herself, she pushed off the ground and stood up again. Lynn, meanwhile, rested his chin on his hands, his red eyes deep and unreadable. Now, can we have a proper conversation? Yukino hesitated. Then, for the first time, she lowered her head. I apologize. Ah. She got put in her place. Maiko and Mahiru thought the same thing at that moment. Uchiha fought back a smirk. No way, this was too funny. To be honest, she deserved to be humbled. Strutting in with that judgmental attitude, who was going to give her face? So, what's your business here? Yukino exhaled before responding honestly. It was Minamiya-sensei who recommended me to come here. Lynn felt a headache coming on. That woman. She was always dragging him into things. He pulled out his phone and immediately sent a message. Lynn, Natsuki, what the hell are you doing? Natsuki Minamiya, isn't your club supposed to deal with supernatural events? Natsuki Minamiya, screenshot. Lynn narrowed his eyes at the proof she sent. It was a form from when the club was established, stating that the Supernatural Investigation Club would handle supernatural cases. In other words, they were technically accepting commissions for supernatural incidents. Okay. Fine. There was such a rule. Alright, Lynn sighed. Tell me about your request. Yukino, still slightly shaken, let out a relieved breath before beginning her explanation. Chapter 54, Maiko the Traitor. Wait, our club actually accepts commissions. As they walked toward the old school building, Uchiha couldn't help but voice her confusion. Back at the Supernatural Investigation Club, Yukinashita Yukino had already explained the situation. The school was planning to renovate the old school building, and as part of the process, the student council had started surveying the area. However, strange supernatural occurrences kept happening inside. Some students claimed to have seen shadows. Others said that tables and chairs moved on their own. And some even swore they had seen Hanako-san in the bathroom. With rumors spiraling out of control, Fujiwara Chika, the student council secretary, had initially sought help from the service club. Yukino, who had scoffed at the idea of ghost stories terrifying students, had taken on the request without hesitation. And then, they had fled in embarrassment. Because the chairs really did move. This was also why Uegahama Yui had been so hesitant when stepping into the Supernatural Investigation Club earlier. The experience had left a mark on her. Unwilling to accept defeat, Yukino had turned to the Supernatural Investigation Club, on Natsuki Minamiya's recommendation. And so, everything that had just happened unfolded. That said, now that she thought about it, if there was already a Supernatural Investigation Club, why had Fujiwara Chika not approached them first? Yukino couldn't help but mentally complain. But as she followed behind the group, she felt her eyelids twitch when she heard Uchiha's remark. Were these people reliable? Then, remembering the pressure she had felt inside the club earlier, she subconsciously glanced toward Lynn. Just who was he? Yukino, are you sure about this? Yui's face filled with concern. Wasn't Yukino still a little shaken? Was this really a good idea? The shadow of the old school building incident still loomed over them. So why? Why go back? Meanwhile, at a distance, a short-haired girl with an energetic vibe blinked in surprise. Is that Maiko? When Yurikawa Hana spotted Maiko, her eyes lit up. But then, she suddenly remembered how things had been lately, and her expression darkened. Traitor Maiko! Ever since you joined that club, you completely abandoned me. A month ago, they were always going home together, but out of nowhere, Maiko had started avoiding her. Wasn't she lonely every night without her? Humph. She had tried asking what club Maiko had joined, but the girl had refused to answer directly. Well then. Now she had caught her red-handed. Yurikawa Hana narrowed her eyes and quietly followed behind, making sure not to alert Maiko. She was determined to uncover the mystery of this so-called Supernatural Investigation Club. Dash. Old school building. Maiko looked up at the decrepit structure and immediately felt uneasy. Could this place be the lair of a cursed spirit? Her spirit's ear devil eyes saw everything clearly. Aside from the first floor, the entire old school building was shrouded in resentment. A thick fog of black and purple malice coiled around the structure, suffocating its surroundings. Only the first floor was spared. Considering how deeply the curse had seeped in, it was a miracle that the student council members and Yukino had managed to escape unharmed. Maiko silently glanced at Yukino and Yui, her expression subtle. What's wrong? Yukino frowned at Maiko's staring. She's just glad you made it out alive, Uchiha smirked from behind her, blowing softly on her neck. Yukino shuddered violently, glaring at her. What was with this life or death nonsense? Sure, she had been startled by the floating chairs earlier, but in the end, she had walked away fine, hadn't she? And the student council members were just frightened, nothing else. This woman was exaggerating. Honestly, the only person in this club who seemed somewhat capable was the president. Are we really going in? Mahiru hesitated. Even though she didn't have Miko's spirit seer devil abilities, as a devil, she could still sense supernatural forces. And what she saw was the same as Miko. Yes. This place was hell. Lynn, however, remained expressionless. He casually sensed the energy inside. It was just a grade 1 cursed spirit. Nothing worth mentioning. But for Miko and the others, this was serious business. Still, this could be a valuable experience for them. Even if they were just spectators, they could gain plenty of insight. That said, Lynn frowned. Lynn, a cursed spirit covering an entire school building, and no one's dealing with it. Natsuki Minamiya, haha, you'd have to ask the idiots on the school board about that. Lynn. Of course. No matter where you went, bureaucracy was always the same. But they expected him to work for free? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Lynn, a grade 1 cursed item as payment isn't too much to ask, right? Natsuki Minamiya, I'll apply for it. It wasn't her money, after all. Inside the faculty office, Natsuki Minamiya casually approved the request. She had no issue selling someone else's assets. Back at the old school building, Lynn nodded in satisfaction. Lynn, Natsuki-chan's guarantees are reliable. Natsuki Minamiya, don't add honorifics to my name. Lynn put away his phone and gazed toward the third floor of the old school building. His eyes pierced through the layers of purple mist, seeing the truth hidden within. His lips curled into a grin. A mere grade 1 cursed spirit making such a scene? Tisk. Seeing his expression, Uchiha and the others instantly understood. That cursed spirit was doomed. Let's go, Lynn said, shaking his phone. Someone's already offered a good price. Cursed item. Uchiha and the others blinked in confusion. It's a special weapon, Lynn explained, before turning to Miko. You'll be the main attacker this time. Miko's eyes widened. Hi. Me. Fighting a grade 1 cursed spirit. Don't worry, Lynn reassured her. I'll back you up. Once you've gained enough experience, I'll finish it off. Lynn glanced at his followers, sighing. Not one of them was ready to take the lead. Sigh. When will I ever get to live a carefree life? So, can someone explain all this to us? Yukino raised her hand. From the start, these people had been throwing around strange terms. Cursed spirit? Cursed items? What the hell was all this? And wasn't this supposed to be a commission from the service club? What was this talk of payment? Who had even offered a reward? She had no idea that the service club had just been Natsuki Minamiya's middleman. From the start, this was always her commission to Lynn. To put it simply, there's a cursed spirit lurking in the old school building. That's all you need to know. Lynn had no interest in explaining further. Besides, it wasn't exactly beneficial for ordinary people to know too much. Yukino opened her mouth, about to argue. As the client, shouldn't they have the right to know? But the moment her eyes met Lynn's, she instinctively shrank back. That ingrained fear, it was something she had never experienced before. It was etched into her very being, rendering her unable to speak. She could only bite her lip and sulk in silence. This was the first time in her life she had encountered such an unreasonable man. The first who completely disregarded the unspoken rules of human society. Even her sister couldn't do that. And yet, for some reason, an unexplainable emotion stirred within her. She took a few deep breaths, trying to calm herself. Then, she cast Lynn a complicated look. At this moment, this man was the rule. And somehow, she didn't even have the courage to refute him. She was losing terribly. But at least this wasn't a complete loss. Lynn's words had given her some information. Cursed spirit. That must be the technical term for ghosts and evil spirits, right? So, ghosts really exist. She pursed her lips. The floating chair back then. It wasn't an illusion at all. Why Yukino? Yui looked pale, her expression torn between fear and helplessness. Ghosts are scary. We've taken over the incident in the old school building, Lynn said plainly. If you're scared, you're free to leave. Honestly, their presence didn't matter to him. That being said, Yukino and Yui were definitely talented individuals. The moment they stepped into the club, his evil piece's skill on the system panel had started flashing. But they needed some training first. Go back. Yui's eyes lit up. Did that mean she didn't have to face ghosts? Great. She turned quickly, pleading with her eyes at Yukino. But Yukino hesitated. She clenched her fists. She was a little unwilling to back down. Huff. She exhaled, her eyes firming with resolve. I want to go. After all, it was just a floating chair, right? Sure, it was scary. But she wanted to see the truth of the world. Uegahama-san, you can head back first. I'll complete the service club's request alone. Yukino wanted to see this through. But there was no need to drag Yui along. After all, they wouldn't necessarily have to face the ghost directly. This was just her own selfish decision. Yui was stunned for a moment. Then, without hesitation. No. If Yukino is going, I'm going too. Even if she was scared, she could grit her teeth and push through. To be honest, she had zero confidence in herself. But if Yukino was alone, she'd be scared too. As her friend, she couldn't leave her behind. Yukino was momentarily speechless. No, you really don't have to. I'm part of the service club too, right? Yui interrupted, flashing a bright, reassuring smile. And besides, we're friends. There's no way I'd let Yukino face this alone. Friends? Yukino's eyes wavered slightly. Her body trembled slightly with nerves. But it didn't feel bad. For just a moment, a barely noticeable smile flickered across her lips. All right, she said softly. Let's go together. Seeing their decision, Lynn nodded. Good. Then let's get ready to move. But first, let's deal with the little spy following us. Lynn turned his head, his crimson eyes locking onto a certain spot. There, peeking out from behind a wall, was a short-haired girl with an energetic look. Her curious gaze was glued to them, watching their every move. But the second their eyes met, she froze. Ah! I've been caught. Maiko followed Lynn's gaze and immediately recognized the girl. Hana. He. Now that she had been discovered, Yurikawa Hana walked out with a big grin. Then, she trotted up to Maiko, grabbing her arm. That exaggerated size. Every time Hana hugged her, Maiko couldn't help but lament her own figure. Hana, what are you doing here? Maiko asked, confused. It's all because of you, Maiko. Hana huffed angrily. I kept asking about your club, but you wouldn't tell me anything. So, I followed you to find out myself. Ahaha. Maiko smiled awkwardly. Well, after all, the Supernatural Investigation Club was a devil's base. Hana was just an ordinary girl. She couldn't even see cursed spirits. Bringing her into this world. Wouldn't that be dangerous? And also, Hana's voice turned slightly resentful. You haven't gone shopping with me in forever. Maiko started sweating. It was true. Recently, she had been neglecting Hana. She spent every day going to the zombie world to train. She barely had time for anything else. Sorry. Maiko quickly apologized. All right, I forgive you. Hana patted her chest with a smug grin. That easy? Maiko was stunned. She didn't even have to bribe her with sweets. Hee. Hana's eyes gleamed mischievously. But I want in on today's club activity. Maiko's smile stiffened. I heard everything. Hana's eyes sparkled with excitement. The old school building exploration sounds so fun. She clenched her fists, determined. This club is awesome. I want to join. That way, I can spend more time with Maiko. And I can do fun activities too. Perfect. Maiko was speechless. Wait. She was about to refuse, but Hana-chan. Hana suddenly pouted, her eyes welling up with fake tears. Maiko's resolve shattered instantly. This felt bad. Something about this felt really bad. Why did she have a feeling that Hana might also end up becoming one of Lynn's followers? Good sisters. Sharing the same fate? Is this really okay? Letting an ordinary person? Yukino sighed, glancing at Hana, who was chatting and laughing with Maiko. She actually followed along. She didn't realize the seriousness of the situation at all. It was as if they were just on an elementary school outing. Ordinary person. Lynn reminded her, aren't you the same? Yukino blinked. Indeed, that was true. Lynn mercilessly added, the only difference is whether it's one burden or two. She couldn't refute that. On the other side, Uchiha suddenly spoke up. By the way, it turns out you guys took the name Service Club ahead of time. Yukino. Could it be? That's right. Uchiha crossed her arms and continued, we originally wanted to use that name for this club, but you got it first. So there really was someone else who wanted to use that name. Yukino silently complained in her heart. But she glanced at the three beautiful girls of the Supernatural Investigation Club, each with their own unique charm, then at Lynn, and said in a subtle tone. It certainly would have lived up to the name, Service Club. Compared to them, her club seemed more like a glorified title. The fact that you thought of that name means your mind isn't pure at all. As the group stepped into the old school building, a sudden chill swept over them. Yukino and Yui shivered, rubbing their hands together. It feels even colder than when we came here last time. She couldn't help but glance at Lynn and the others. Ah! They seemed completely unaffected. Not even Hana? What's wrong with you guys? Hana walked over, curiosity in her eyes. You, don't feel the cold? Yukino asked hesitantly. Hana thought for a moment, then smiled brightly and said, not at all. It seems you're the only ordinary ones here. Uchiha taunted. Yukino secretly gritted her teeth. This woman was really venomous. Lynn ignored the exchange between Uchiha and Yukino. His gaze shifted slightly to the right and landed on Yurikawa Hana. Uchiha and the others might not be able to see it. But he could. That life energy was practically overflowing. Another talent. Once this matter was settled, he'd have to find a way to bring her into the fold. Then, he looked back at the school building. The moment they stepped onto the first floor of the old building, a woman's voice echoed. She seemed to be complaining about something. Why are more and more people coming to the old school building lately? Ah! A helpless sigh came from deep inside. Then, Lynn saw a worn-out chair float up, swaying as it flew toward them. It's here! Yui exclaimed, quickly covering her mouth, afraid of disturbing whatever it was. But her body trembled uncontrollably. A ghost! It's a ghost! Yukino stopped arguing with Uchiha. Seeing the same eerie sight as before, her pupils shrank. Hana, on the other hand, widened her eyes in amazement. Wow! That's so cool! The terrifying scene left Yukino and Yui speechless. Only Hana seemed excited, completely unaware of the danger. But while they found it horrifying, Lynn and the others saw something entirely different. Hey! A tall, voluptuous beauty with long black hair, fair skin, and narrow eyes floated in the air, struggling to hold up a tattered chair. She muttered in an exaggerated tone. Look, look! It's a floating chair. Run away quickly, or the big ghost will eat you. Lynn and the others. The ghost girl floated there for a while. Seeing that none of them reacted, she finally sighed and set the chair down, panting. Damn, are students these days really this fearless? In the blink of an eye, she appeared right in front of them. Hey! Why aren't you running? She floated in front of Yukino and shouted at her, only to see Yukino staring blankly at the chair she had just put down. Strange, why did the chair suddenly stop moving? Yuako-kanu. Of course, it's because I got tired. She sighed. As expected, no one could see her. But she had to find a way to make them leave. The big ghost upstairs was too terrifying. If they barged in, things would turn disastrous. She subconsciously passed by Hana and stopped in front of Lynn. That girl's life energy was strong and burning hot. Oh? A boy surrounded by girls. Yuako-kanu teased, then waved a hand in front of his face. Can you see me? Can you? Nothing. No reaction. Alright, he probably couldn't see her either. Even so, she had to try something. She had scared off plenty of students lately with supernatural events. This time, it had to work. Just as she was about to leave. Snap! A broad, warm hand grabbed her wrist. Yuako-kanu, who had been floating in the air, suddenly froze. She leaned back slightly, eyes widening in shock. This. Miss Ghost. Lynn smiled. Mind telling me what's going on here? You can see me. Yuako-kanu's red eyes widened, filled with surprise and joy. Of course. Lynn nodded and gestured toward Yukino, Yui, and Hana. Aside from those three, everyone else here can see you. The rest were all devils, so naturally, they could perceive her. Hearing this, Yuako's pale face lit up with uncontrollable excitement. Then, she lunged at Lynn, pressing up against him. She tilted her head up, her eyes sparkling. Really? 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 Lynn looked down slightly. Her lips were close, almost as if he could feel her breath. Well, if ghosts even needed to breathe. This ghost lady, we can all see you. Uchiha stepped forward with a fake smile and casually pulled Yuako off Lynn. Ah! Yuako let out a contented sigh. Decades. She had floated here alone for decades. No one could see her. And today, so many people could. She was overjoyed. For a moment, she basked in her happiness. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, her face stiffened. Wait. If you could see me this whole time. Then you saw me pretending to be a ghost just now. Maiko and the others nodded. Ugh. Yuako suddenly let out a miserable groan. Why didn't anyone stop me? If no one saw her, it would be considered a bizarre supernatural event. But they had seen her. And that made it feel a bit ridiculous. Yuako awkwardly tapped her foot in the air. Maiko was surprised. Ghosts can get embarrassed. Yuako retorted loudly, ghosts were humans too, you know. Sorry. Maiko scratched her cheek awkwardly. Are you really communicating with a ghost? Yukino's voice trembled slightly, while Yui shrank behind her, too scared to even peek out. Eh? Where? Where's Miss Ghost? Hana looked around, shaking her head back and forth as if trying to spot something. Maiko. You really are something, Hana. But this ghost was different from the ones she had encountered before. Not only could she communicate, but she also seemed to be creating incidents to scare students away. A kind ghost. Meanwhile, Lynn looked at the glowing evil piece on his panel, then at the ghost floating in front of him. His expression turned strange. Can ghosts be turned into peerage members? Is this diversity in the devil race? Adhering to his usual approach of studying the evil piece, Lynn felt it was worth trying. Once this commission was over, he'd find an excuse to recruit her. For now, he put the thought aside and listened to her story. The ghost's name was Yuako Kanu. An old ghost. A ground-bound spirit. Because she was stuck here and had nothing to do, she spent most of her time sleeping. Then, one day, when she woke up, the atmosphere of the old school building had completely changed. It was now crawling with cursed spirits. Of course, they were just low-grade cursed spirits and didn't pose a direct threat to her. But they were invading her territory. Mainly, they were just disgusting. Then, at some point, a barrier had appeared in the old school building, preventing the cursed spirits from escaping. So, Yuako drove them all to the second floor and moved the barrier to the stairs to keep them trapped. As a result, the cursed spirits began to devour each other, eventually forming a composite monster. Even Yuako was a bit frightened. She hadn't expected that driving them to the second floor would actually accelerate the creation of a terrifying cursed spirit. If not for the barrier, she might have already been eliminated. But now, the barrier was full of cracks, and she had no idea how much longer it would last. Still, Yuako was surprisingly calm. She had been a ghost for decades, with nothing much to do every day. Dying completely didn't seem like a big deal. After listening to her story, Lynn quickly grasped the situation. Someone was deliberately cultivating cursed spirits. By trapping them in a closed environment and allowing them to cannibalize each other, they were producing stronger cursed spirits. Yuako's decision to confine them upstairs had only sped up the process. No wonder Natsuki said the people on the board of directors were idiots. Cursed spirits were easy to breed but hard to control. If one of them went rogue, it would spell disaster. Lynn had Maiko explain the situation to the three who couldn't see the supernatural. Yukino was surprised. So the floating chair was just Yuako's way of keeping students away. Unexpectedly, she was a kind ghost. But Yukino glanced up. As expected, she still couldn't see anything. She frowned before sighing. Even if you tell me there's something terrifying up there, it won't feel real if I can't see it. She couldn't help but glance at Lynn and the others. Aside from Lynn, could they all see? Was it something innate, or was there a method? After a brief hesitation, she asked, is there a way for us to see it too? Lynn glanced at her. Of course there is. But, are you sure you want to? Once you see the real world, there's no going back. His tone was calm, but something about it made Yukino and Yui's skin crawl. After a brief pause, Yukino gritted her teeth. I'd rather understand everything than remain ignorant. Uchiha, give her a buff. Following Lin's instructions, Uchiha summoned the Devil Tome. Devils had plenty of spells to grant humans temporary spirit vision. As the floating tome opened in Uchiha's hands, Yukino's pupils shrank. Does this woman actually have supernatural abilities? Uchiha activated a ghost-seeing spell through the Devil Tome. A golden beam shot into Yukino's eyes. She instinctively closed them. A strange sensation washed over her vision. When she opened her eyes again, a black-haired woman floated in the air before her. Her eyes widened slightly. Is this Miss Ghost? She really was floating. Taking a deep breath, she looked up toward the second floor. And then, HNGH. Her pupils shrank, and a chilling sensation rushed down her spine. Cold sweat dripped from her forehead. A thick, eerie purple mist filled the old school building like a dark storm cloud, covering everything in a hellish shroud. This is the real world. Yukino trembled slightly. For years, she had believed in a certain reality. And now, that reality had shattered completely. The world she thought she knew had been nothing but an illusion. What? What? Hana's curiosity was piqued. I want to see it too. I want to see it too. Seeing her excitement, Uchiha cast the same ritual on her. Then, she turned to Yui. Do you want it too? Her gaze silently conveyed the question. Yui hesitated, then looked at Yukino who seemed utterly shaken and took a deep breath. She nodded firmly. Another golden beam was cast into her eyes. Ah! So scary. Even Hana, who was usually carefree, let out a startled yelp. Ah, but Miss Ghost is cute. Maiko. Hana is still completely off track. Yuako blinked, then chuckled. Thanks, you're cute too. He he he. On the other side, Yui felt like crying. She wanted to act natural like Hannah. But I can't do it. She just couldn't. Is this even the same world I knew? While the three of them were struggling to process their new reality, Lynn casually walked toward the second floor. Yukino instinctively reached out. Are we really going to fight something capable of causing this? Shouldn't the school handle this kind of thing? Even Yuako wanted to stop him. But Lynn was already at the staircase. He raised his hand and lightly tapped the cracked barrier. Crack. Crack crack. Boom. The weakened barrier shattered into dust. Ya-a-a-a-a-a-a. As if it had sensed its release, a deafening roar erupted from deep within the building. Lynn turned around and smiled at them. Now, let's begin the real commission. Ah. Yuako was stunned. Did this guy not understand what she just said? The big cursed spirit upstairs was terrifying. Don't worry, Miss Yuako, Master is very strong, Mahiru said with a gentle smile, trying to reassure her. Mahiru always had a way of calming people's nerves. That said, they had never really seen the full extent of Lin's power. It always felt like he was omnipotent, able to handle any situation effortlessly. Whether it was Uchiha, Maiko, Mahiru, or even everyone in his peerage, they all had an unwavering confidence in him. Well, it's already come to this anyway, Yuako sighed. They really weren't nervous at all. But fine. If they weren't going to be scared, neither would she. Her eyes burned with determination. I've had enough of this. Every time I'm sleeping, my head keeps getting knocked against the walls. It's ruined my sleep quality. I even have dark circles under my eyes. Today, I'll risk my life to settle all my old and new grudges. Miss Yuako, aren't you already dead? Maiko couldn't help but point out. Yuako shot her a speechless look. Why did this kid always have to ruin the moment? A ghost's life is still alive. Boom. 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 The roar from upstairs was followed by heavy footsteps. Each step felt like it was stomping directly on Yukino's heart. Her face turned pale, and a deep sense of powerlessness crept over her. She had no idea what was going to happen next. Boom. Behind Lynn, a grotesque mass of flesh tumbled down the stairs. The sheer impact instantly smashed a gaping hole into the wall. The old wooden steps shattered under its weight, sending shards flying everywhere. The moment Yukino saw it, her heart nearly stopped. So scary. So scary. So scary. So scary. No matter how composed she usually appeared, she was still just a girl. How could she not be terrified of such a monstrous creature? As for Yui, she was already frozen in fear. So disgusting. Hannah wrinkled her nose in distaste. Her appetite for tonight was completely ruined. Damn it. It actually made her lose her appetite? Unforgivable. This was the greatest offense anyone had ever committed against her. Even Uchiha and the others, seeing a first-grade cursed spirit for the first time, were visibly disgusted by its grotesque appearance. Maiko even felt a twinge of PTSD. For just a moment, she recalled certain, unpleasant memories. Ya-a-a-a-a-a. The tumor-like monster let out another deafening roar. A powerful gust of wind blasted outward, sending their clothes fluttering. So noisy. Lin frowned and casually waved his hand. A black magic circle appeared in front of the cursed spirit's mouth, sealing it shut. A. The roar was cut off abruptly, and the entire building fell silent. The cursed spirit opened its mouth, but no sound came out. It thrashed around in frustration. It felt humiliated. Enraged, it lunged at Lin from behind. Watch out! Yukino instinctively cried out. Lin didn't even turn around. Bang! A loud impact echoed through the building. But then, something bizarre happened. The cursed spirit suddenly froze in midair, its massive body colliding with an invisible force. The impact caused its grotesque flesh to contort and warp. And the next second, boom! The repelling force sent it hurtling backward at an even greater speed. It slammed into the wall, creating a massive crater of debris and dust. The cursed spirit stopped moving. The entire room fell silent. Yuako, Yukino, Yui, and Hannah were all stunned. This cursed spirit wasn't as strong as they thought? No. Yukino quickly shook her head. It wasn't that the cursed spirit was weak, Lin was just too strong. The president of the Supernatural Investigation Club. No wonder he had been so confident. No wonder Minami-ya-sensei had told her to seek their help. Because this man was absurdly powerful. A cursed spirit that could smash through walls, dent floors, and shroud an entire building in malevolent energy. To Lin, it was nothing more than a toy. It hadn't even been able to touch him before it was crushed. And then, Yukino remembered her attitude toward him back at the club. Her body stiffened. Lin, surely he's not the type to hold grudges, right? Right? Yuako understood even more than she did. After all, she had lived with that cursed spirit in this building. She knew how terrifying it was. And yet, to Lynn, it was just a trivial nuisance. He's so reliable. Hana was much simpler in her admiration. Maiko. Your club president is so cool. Lynn, meanwhile, had no interest in the cursed spirit. With his current strength as an ultimate class devil, a first-grade cursed spirit wasn't even worth his time. Let alone one that was just a stitched-together mass of lower-ranked spirits. But it was perfect for giving Uchiha and the others some combat experience. Uchiha, Maiko, Mahiru, your turn. Yes, X3. They stepped forward, their expressions serious. For Lynn, this thing was a joke. But for them, it was a real opponent. Don't let it recover. Uchiha took the lead. The pages of her devil tome flipped rapidly before settling on a high-tier lightning spell. Lightning. A magic circle formed within the book. Boom. A crackling blue bolt of lightning struck the cursed spirit, sending green smoke rising from its charred flesh. A faint burnt smell filled the air. Mahiru followed up immediately. She pulled out the blazing spear she had received from Rias and fired a beam imbued with holy energy straight into the cursed spirit's body. Holy energy was particularly effective against evil creatures like this. Maiko didn't have many offensive techniques, nor were there other cursed spirits here for her to control. But her abilities allowed her to attack spirit-based creatures directly. She had learned a few basic magic techniques, and even with just that, the damage she inflicted was greater than Uchiha and Mahiru's combined. Yukino watched in silence. She stared at Uchiha and the others, seamlessly using their supernatural abilities and coordinating in battle. Her feelings were complicated. Is everyone in the Supernatural Investigation Club a supernatural being? They were all students at Chunin Academy. And yet, she couldn't help but feel like they lived in entirely different worlds. While she was busy talking about changing society by addressing people's weaknesses, they were in some dark corner of the world, fighting monsters like this. Compared to them, she felt ridiculous. Chunin Academy, old school building. Yukino fell into silence. She was somewhat shaken. For the first time, she began to doubt herself. In a world like this, where the supernatural was real, what could someone like her without any abilities possibly do? Keep it up, Maiko. Hana cheered without hesitation, showing no sign of fear. She didn't even stop to question how Maiko suddenly gained supernatural powers. Hana's voice snapped Yukino out of her thoughts. She exhaled lightly. Now wasn't the time to be lost in contemplation. Her attention returned to the battle. Uchiha was breathing heavily. From the start, she had been using her full strength to deal with this cursed spirit that was beyond their current level. Her magic was running low. She turned to look at Lynn. Master, replenish my magic. She said it naturally, without the slightest hesitation. Wait. Yukino was shocked. What did she just hear? Master? Did she just call Lynn master? Her eyes widened as she shifted her gaze back and forth between Uchiha and Lynn, trying to decipher their relationship. Boyfriend and girlfriend? Or is master just some kind of role play? And what was this magic replenishment? In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Lynn's peerage members usually referred to him as president while in school. But caught up in the moment, Uchiha had carelessly used the term master. Lynn, however, didn't bother explaining. After all, what was there to explain? As a devil, it was only natural for him to supply magic to his peerage members when needed. Without hesitation, he held Uchiha's face and kissed her. Yukino was stunned again. Her pupils trembled. It's confirmed. They're definitely in that kind of relationship. But shouldn't there be a time and place for this? The atmosphere shifted in an instant, from an intense battle to a completely different kind of scene. After their lips parted, Uchiha felt a surge of energy filling her body. Ah, so you two are in that kind of relationship. Yuako floated over, draping herself over Lynn, eyes filled with curiosity and intrigue. Uchiha narrowed her eyes at her. You ghost, do you not understand personal boundaries? From the very beginning, this ghost had been trying to get close to Lynn. Haven't seen a man in 800 years or something. Yuako remained unfazed by the verbal jab. Instead, she pressed her chest against Lynn, looking up at him with mischievous eyes. So? Soft, right? She asked, clearly expecting an answer. Not wearing anything. As a ghost, does that even matter? This damn ghost. Uchiha clenched her teeth. Pa. Before she could react, Lynn smacked her on the backside. Quit slacking and get back to the fight. I know. Blushing, Uchiha hurried back to assist Maiko and Mahiru. Yuako blinked in surprise. She actually obeyed so quickly? She had planned to tease her a little more. Master. Maiko panted heavily, feeling her stamina and magic running out. Lynn didn't waste time with words and directly replenished her magic. Yuako, Yukino. What's going on? These three. Hana gasped, covering her mouth in shock. Maiko. So bold. Wait, didn't Lynn just kiss Uchiha? So who exactly is his girlfriend? For a moment, she was completely lost. Mahiru, do you need it? Letting go of Maiko, Lynn turned to Mahiru. Her face was flushed. She was both exhausted and embarrassed. No choice. I didn't bring Shizuka-san's supplies, so it looks like I'll have to rely on Lynn's magic. After all, this was an opportunity to gain experience. HAAA. She exhaled softly, then spoke in a shy voice. Then. I'll leave it to you, master. Shiana Mahiru, first-time magic replenishment. Her dazed eyes reflected Lynn's presence. All three of them. Even the usually carefree Hana had her pupils shaking. Yuako fell silent. In her 60 years as a ghost, she had never seen a scene like this. It really is a harem, after all. Yukino's expression was blank. She felt like her entire worldview was crumbling. No wonder no one objected when she called the Supernatural Investigation Club the harem department. There was no need to refute it. Why Yukino? Did the cursed spirit hit me with an illusion attack? Why did I just see them all kissing the same man? No, you weren't under an illusion. That was real. Dash. After a while, Uchiha, Maiko, and Mahiru were exhausted once again. Lynn saw that the fight had dragged on long enough. Raising his hand, he unleashed a bolt of black lightning. The already weakened first-grade cursed spirit was instantly obliterated, disintegrating into raw curse energy. Spirit devouring activated. A condensed first-grade curse spirit experience pill appeared in Lynn's hand. Alright, mission complete. Lynn took out his phone, snapped a picture, and sent it to Natsuki Minamiya. Natsuki Minamiya? I told you to exorcise the spirit, not demolish the place. Lynn glanced around. Well, aside from the structural damage, the inside looked like it had been on fire. Lynn, that's between you and the school. Just don't forget my mission reward. Natsuki Minamiya. Dash. Is it over? Yukino stared blankly. They had been struggling against the cursed spirit this whole time, yet Lynn had ended it with a single attack. What a terrifying man. Her gaze toward Lynn changed. She must never provoke him. At the same time, countless questions flooded her mind. The harem dynamics in the Supernatural Investigation Club? And this magic replenishment? From what she observed, each time Uchiha, Maiko, or Mahiru kissed Lynn, they recovered their stamina and magic. So, does kissing actually serve as some kind of combat endurance boost? She had far too many questions about Lynn and his group. But, after this mission, she probably wouldn't have any further interactions with them, right? After all, she and Lynn belonged to completely different worlds. Yukino was just an ordinary person. Dash. So exhausted. Uchiha groaned as she stretched her aching shoulders. I feel more drained than if I'd just been beaten to death. The three of them had fought non-stop but failed to defeat the cursed spirit. Well, it was a first-grade cursed spirit. It's still a bit beyond your current level. Lynn continued, but after this, I imagine your abilities will improve quite a bit. Abilities? Uchiha, Maiko, and Mahiru's eyes lit up. After battling a first-grade cursed spirit for so long, they were eager to see their growth. Hey, you're leaving. Yuako floated over, her expression a bit lonely. Soon, she would be alone again. Alone in this old school building. Lynn noticed this. He extended a hand to her. Would you consider joining my peerage? To be continued.